I'm willing to take risks to make something happen. Like, you keep doing their hard work, and at some point it will pay off. Back home in Canada, I used to play tennis and hockey a lot. The biggest learning opportunity in hockey is just the leadership, you know? You're in a tough game, and sometimes you have to pass those hard messages to players, like to, you know, wake up. That's basically the same like in Fortnite and just in life in general. Just keep going. And that mindset came mostly from like my father, which was coaching for, like, he's still coaching now that I'm gone. He really tries to bring the best out of everyone, and yeah, that's something I guess I got from him. It's always been like, if you have an opportunity, like, you've got to go for it and like work for it. That's something I'm really, really grateful about. To just have those values in me. I'm gonna try to keep them forever, hopefully, and never forget it. My brother, he's been managing me and doing a really good job at it through the whole journey of like the gaming thing and the esports thing in Fortnite. He's been like a huge part of it. I was playing console for a long time on keyboard and mouse because I asked for a computer for Christmas, and you know, that's like a big expense. He's the one that convinced them that it was worth it to buy me the computer so I could play in those World Cup qualifiers. I'm pretty lucky. I've got a good family system around me to support me through everything. Me and Pamsy, we've been playing for a long time. We've been through so much, like we know each other really, really well by now, and we're really good friends. So during my wrist injury, he waited for me the whole month to then come back together for FNCS, and I guess that was hard for him. Yeah, I'm pretty grateful for that. My injury, my wrist like basically broke down. I couldn't play anymore at all. I got tendonitis, which was what it was, and like a half fracture. I had to take a full month off. And yeah, it's been tough because, you know, you come back after that month and then your in-game level just crashed to the ground. I wanted to come back stronger. I don't think that exactly happened, but I still think I'm better now as a complete overall player than I was at that point. To prepare to global championships, I'll just be playing scrims, playing creative, reviewing games. I think we will qualify for sure if we get uncontested. If we're contested, it's going to be way harder, but it's not impossible. I mean, it's everything. We've got to qualify. I guess the feeling I would like to have when I'm just done with everything is just knowing I've tried my best to be the best version of myself. If I know I did that, then whatever results like happen, like I tried my best.
This is the Global Championship.
The best players in the world all battling it out. insane matches already today.
These are the moments that make these players championship material.
One chance to make it happen, and they take it by force.
It is going to be absolutely insane.
There's no better way to spend the next few hours because the NAFNCS is upon us. A lot of teams secured series points last week, but on the other hand, we see some new duos tonight who have to make it. The Yamzo and Rise have had nothing but a phenomenal start to the season and gained a good bunch of series points last weekend already. With a solid performance tonight, we should look at the first team to guaranteed Major 3 Grand Finals. However, while Pamstu and Fatch missing out on Week 1 finals, they are now back to make amends and prove that they belong here. This veteran NA duo have the experience to compete in these lobbies. The only question is, how high will they climb on the leaderboard? A completely new duo formed this season, Peterbot and Larson. Starting from scratch with a total of 0 series points, these guys are on a mission, but it is not impossible. They need to have a solid performance, not just in this week's finals, but also in the upcoming week as well. Their journey to success starts tonight. No one should be counted out just yet, as there is plenty of opportunity to make it to the grand finals. But the grip is tightening, and tonight the teams have to make it count. Every placement counts, and no one wants to sit out. This is the NAFNCS.
What's going on, Fortnite fam? Welcome to the FNCS. It is that time. Yesterday, we got to watch EU go absolutely insane, and today, NA is going to step up. We get to jump into all of the action, see how things are developing over here, and there's so many things to discuss, and a couple things we want to highlight, but before we do all of that, I don't know if you knew about it, but Legends Landing is the thing. If you want to watch the FNCS, you're doing that, you're like, maybe I want to play a little bit of Fortnite at the same exact time, well, stop by Legends Landing. You can see the island code there on your screen right now. You've got box fights, build fights, the Hall of Champions, the Hall of Legends, a display of the Acts of Champions. There's so much to check out here in Legends Landing. So make sure to check it out. Just stop on by. You can watch the FNCS, play a little bit of Fortnite at the same time. It's really dope. Now, of course, I've got some very incredible analysts who will be helping kind of teach us and tell us about all the things happening on NA today. It is none other than Vivid and Mini Miner. Friends, welcome to the broadcast. Yesterday was EU, but now we step up for NA action. How are you guys feeling about it?
Feeling good, Zeke. What's up, Mini? What's up, Zeke? And what is up, Fortnite fam? Excited to get into week number 2 for NA here of Major number 2. Listen, Mini, the series point leaderboard, things gotta start happening this week.
Yeah, it's really shaking up. I'm very excited for this week. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so do bear with me on today's show. I do apologize, but I'm excited for today. The action's going to be incredible, and I can't.
This is what happens when we get too excited, right, Minnie? We just yell, we lose our voices at Fortnite. It is what it is. Now, yesterday, over on EU, we kind of teased, hey, there was some things happening, maybe a new outfit coming to the game. Well, check this out. Terminator is here. I mean, listen, I don't know about you guys. I love traversal emotes specifically, and that little truck with the tiny little peely driving, I have to stop by the shop and pick that one up.
I personally just love buying outfits. Terminator is definitely going to be one of them.
Yep, I'll definitely be picking up in the armor shop. Looks absolutely insane, and it'll go along nicely with my other outfits, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember to check it out in the shop before it heads on out. Now, let's talk about some of the duos we'll be seeing compete here today. We have just 2 duos here that you do want to focus on. The first one, of course, is Peterbot and Larson. Now, you're probably thinking, whoa, wait, did you say Peterbot and Larson? Those are names I'm used to hearing together. Well, yeah, it's a brand new duo that is formed here for week number 2. And the thing that I think is the most interesting, they're actually contesting their opposite duo mates. So we had 2 duos at 1 POI. They split up, took the other's duo, and now it's an all-out brawl.
Yeah, a little bit of a duo switch-up right here. So we had Peterbot and Quanti playing last week. They didn't actually do too well. And the same as Larson and Chimp, they also played together. Also didn't do too great, didn't even make it out of opens. So for this week, they've actually swapped duos and are now contesting each other just to the north of Creaky Compound. This is going to be a very, very exciting fight because both of these duos seem to have been buffed by swapping teammates and actually playing together individually. I'm excited to see how this one goes with it.
Yeah, and the fact that they are just brand new duos coming into week number 2 means that they essentially have 0 series points as it currently stands. So they're going to have a big week 2 in order to catch up to the rest of the competition. But like we've already mentioned, Minnie, they're contesting each other.
Yeah, they're contesting each other. I'm very excited to see how Peterbot and Larson do. I'm actually particularly excited to see how Peterbot does as well because he sort of had to morph into this IGL role now, of course, not playing with Quanti anymore, having to lead Larson today. And he hasn't really done that since back all the way in Chapter 3 or the beginning of Chapter 3 when he played with Byler. And we all know the result of that, of course, winning Chapter 3 Season 2 FNCS. I like IGL Peterbot, and of course, he's such a fragger as well.
Yeah, and of course, he hasn't been able to replicate that win yet. We know him on NA to be one of the best mechanical players, but if that hasn't been able to produce the results, I like the switch up to him kind of taking the initiative to learn that IGL role.
Yeah, they're doing really, really good. And I'm excited to see this duo perform because they need to. Of course, they didn't get any series points from week number 1 because they played with different players. Now it just means that this week and next week is all the more important for them.
Yeah, and I mean, especially as we draw right ever closer to that last chance major, you have to kind of put everything on the table, right? I love that you talk about this, Vivid. You kind of have to say, what do we need to do to qualify? This is it. Let's try and take some steps forward to qualify, right? Now, the second duo we have here for you guys is Pamstu and Fatch. Now, they actually missed out last week. And then this week, Pamstu actually managed to hit a massive clutch to get them here to the finals. What can we expect from the duo coming in today?
Well, I'm hoping that they don't need a solo clutch today because they just about snuck into the finals today, all down to Pamstu himself. Of course, we know how good Pamstu is. Of course, he won the All-Stars all the way back in Chapter 2, Season 7 on NA East. And he's one of the sort of players that's just been around for so long. And when these two are combined together, usually the results are pretty good. So far, this major, or this chapter, I should say, they haven't had the best performances, of course, just missing out on the Global Championships last year. And they want to try and make amends for that, of course. Even with Fatch having a few injury issues at the beginning of the year, it hasn't quite been the best for them, but they have potential here.
And if you're fans of Cammy and Seti over on EU, this is kind of like the NA version of them. They like to play very, very passive, low-key, and methodical in order to get the job done. So I'm excited to see what they can pull off here in week number 2.
But look at this, though. Pamstu solo clutching needed 235 points-ish from this semi-final to qualify, and he went on an absolute tear. Look at this. Fatch went down, I think it was top 18 around that, so Pamstu had it all to do. Hitting so many shots to that breacher, taking walls, going aggressive, and making it all happen right at the last minute. This is top-tier Fortnite, and that's what you need in your duo partner. If your duo can clutch up like this, you have to be confident. And today, they're actually landing at the north side of Slappy Shores, so switching it up a little bit, I'm excited to see if they can perform.
That was what I was going to ask, was going to be my next question. Where on the map can we look for them to contest? So is this going to be like a hotspot for the duo? If they're looking to swap up, what might be the reasons as to why they've made this change?
It's got to be something involved with it, right? Like Minnie had mentioned, they didn't actually make it even into the semifinals of last week, so maybe the drop shot was a part of that.
Yeah, it definitely was. They had a lot of issues off spawn last week, and of course going down early is never going to help your case.
Right.
And now they're of course uncontested at North Slappy Shores. We remember all the way back in Chapter 3, they actually claimed a little French-Canadian split at the top of the map. They like being uncontested, and they are today.
Like to hear it. I love to hear it. Now, of course, as always, we do have an interview with probably a crowd favorite for some of you out there at home. It is none other than Kanata, who will be watching compete today. Kanata, what's going on, man? It's great to talk to you.
What's up, man? How you doing?
You know, man, I'm doing much better now that I get to hear your voice, see you compete. What are expectations coming into today, man? How are you and your duo feeling?
I'm feeling good. Slept like 10 hours yesterday. I'm just ready. I'm ready to win.
Yeah, we know you and Aegis, you guys are so good at getting the Storm Surge, so that takes up a lot of the mid game for you. Have you guys ever thought about going for the Rift Island, though, for some of those extra points?
The island, I would say, like, there's a problem with the island because there's players that have control of Rift's middle map, and they can Rift on it while the island is spawning in, where we don't have control of that, so we can't really go for it. But let's say it spawns to the right of racetrack, then I would definitely go for it.
Now, of course, you guys are landing at the racetrack. Some teams have had a few issues with Storm Surge coming out of there, so what are your sort of strategies for Storm Surge today?
Today will definitely be not basing up, because what I realized was from the spot is when I'm basing for Surge, to trade with Mega City, I don't really see a lot of Surge opportunities sitting there and wasting my time. So today we're gonna change something up, lurking on people, maybe getting early Surge and playing the games out perfectly.
Do you guys have like a strategy that you find maybe does work best for you? Is it, you know, kind of going aggressive, or you know, are you guys just looking for maybe duos that are, you feel like are maybe a little on the weaker side and you're thinking, this is our time, we need the Surge, let's go get their resources? Like, what's your guys' plan of attack?
Our plan is definitely going to be holding the pistol today. I think I'm literally like really good with the pistol, and that pistol does a lot of damage. It's literally a sniper in your hands, right? And that's a really good gun to use for Surge. So whenever our cache spawns, we'll be going for our cache, and there's gonna be people around, of course, and hopefully I hit a headshot doing like 190 to somebody and getting cap Surge.
Yeah, man, I like it. Let's see some aggressive play out today, but thank you so much, Kanata. We can't wait to see how you perform today.
Thank you.
Kanata, a fantastic member of our community, and of course, an incredible player. I'm hoping to see some big mammoth headshots flying out. But man, we're kind of getting closer here to when games begin, so we do want to kind of talk about a couple things before we get ready to jump into match. The next thing we want to talk about is actually Iamzo and Rise. These guys are taking over Castle Split, and they have just been so extremely successful. So we wanted to kind of talk about, like, why are they so successful? Vivid? Help us out.
Yeah. I mean, their week number 1 performance was so dominant, and I wanted to kind of hone in on kind of like why that was, and had to start in the early game, right? They are so efficient at this drop spot. They're going to be mainly looking to take over this castle on the east side and the gas station on the west side here. But what is so good about this split drop is that this season there has been a vault added right underneath of the castle. So if you're lucky enough and that ball spawns, you get access to a loot, and that is so good. And I talked about the efficiency of this duo. They don't just hang around this castle. No, they actually split up and go get some early Storm Surge tags.
Yeah, and these Storm Surge tags can be absolutely vital for this duo when it comes to the later stages of the game. You can see them holding that MK assault rifle just to get those tags. And in this particular game, you can see they do, of course, get the spawn of that keycard, those NPCs that spawn nearby. And of course, Vivid, that keycard gets you access to the vault, which has so much loot inside.
Yeah, those slurp juices are so good, but what a lot of people haven't been taking is that mythic flapjack rifle. And that's because Storm Surge is just dominated by the MK and the sights that you get on it. But if we take a look here, Iamzo and Rise actually opted to take both of those rifles. And, you know, that's strange, right? Because this season, there being no mobility or anything like that, most duos want 3 heals so that way they can take some risky rotates without having to build. But the reason this works so well for them is because their mid-game objective is, of course, to go for those caches, and they get so many extra heals from the slurp juices that they get out of them that later on in the game, after they have Storm Surge and everything done, they can drop the MK and take that mythic flapjack rifle into the end game.
And it's all about that surge that they did earlier on. We saw them split, looking for each other's tags, making sure that they were above at the beginning. And that just gives them the freedom, the flexibility to drop that MKSR level because they're like, you know what, we're chilling. We're happy. We're enjoying ourselves right now on surge. So, of course, they can take those flapjacks into endgame. And those things are devastating. If you want a weapon in endgame, it's the flapjack because you can just continually spray and spray and spray and expect to see a lot of that today.
That's actually such a cool breakdown, right? Because when you think about it, you look at a lot of the loadouts, even of past seasons, the thing that these guys do so well is that flexibility, right? You look at across the board, everyone's taking 3 heals and 2 weapons, and they kind of have to like pigeon or box themselves into this strategy. They're just like, we'll just take 3, we'll figure it out, it's fine, and it seems to work out for them. Guys, as we get ready for today, what are your expectations coming into week number 2 here in NA? Do you think some duos are going to struggle? Do you think some will rise, especially with the Mammoth pistol in? What do you guys think?
Well, let's talk about the Yams on Rise, right? I gave you some insight in the week number 1. Here's some insight in the week number 2. Their Storm Surge isn't going to be coming from those tags that they were getting. No, they're going to be contested. So if they make it off spawn, then that's where they'll be getting their Surge from this week.
And you mentioned it, Zeke. The Mammoth pistol. I mean, oh my goodness. Let's just quickly mention that. That thing is an absolute beast. So much damage, of course, with that heavy headshots augment as well. You can do up to 198 with the gold version. It's incredible.
So insane. You guys have me way too hyped. And there's also 2 people who are also just as hyped as I am. It is your casters. So we're going to send it their way. Give a big welcome to Jacob PR and Levin 2K.
Hyped is an understatement, let me tell you that. This is week 2 of the NA Central Finals, and I am ready for it. You guys talked about the superstars, Levin, but the team I kind of want to mention is our console player that qualified here at Sync and Minx. They deserve it, but they're taking on the top dogs, Yams on Rise.
Okay, interesting, direction from you here. I think someone's clearly trying to get all the console players on his side, right? Trying to add to his own personal fan base. Look, I do hope that he can do well off spawn, but I'll be real. Yams and Rise and my boys, they're the ones I want to see come out on top, and they've been so impressive so far this season. They are quite literally the team to beat. But the problem is, Jacob, people looking at them going, hold on a minute, why haven't they already made it to the Global Championship? This is an example of why they've been surprise contested so many times this year in the majors we've had, and it hasn't always worked out in the way they've wanted to. They've been so close, yet so far it feels like. And this will be a big test for them today, and a test that starts now in game 1. Let's get right into it.
The game begins here, and for some of these teams it begun last week where they may not have the best showing, but this is the time. This is a time for redemption to really come out of the gate swinging out hot. And we talked about that drop spot, the slap and go split, and let's get right into it. The drop spot has been cleared. Rise gets the first lever, a lot of damage dealt, and down goes Sync. This is a great opening for both User and Rise because now they have a 1v2 situation, and you see they're not trying to bull rush, they're not getting greedy, they're just continuing to loot up because they know the time is already on their side.
Yeah, they've got a birth of experience fighting off spawn at this spot, and so you can be much assured that when given the opportunity to play it slower like this, they're going to keep their cool. They know how to handle it. It is also just going to be about watching out. If game after game, will they be able to get the better drops and get the better weapon spawns? It seems like that's the case here in game 1, but there are still many more chances to do so. But a nice start here for Rise and User.
That was actually a phenomenal start. Business as usual. It's like they didn't even have a hiccup in their game plan to take it. And you can see over here, we talked about another off-spawn battle. And judging by Chimp's first elimination, it's already going their way as well. So an early start for some of these teams, and it's early start that is so necessary in order to make the FNCS Grand Finals for Major 3, because we talk about it so much, but we want to make sure you know how important it is. Without Surge Week, it's those top 50 teams, and that's why you're seeing these off-spawn battles from one side of the map all the way to the other, over towards Lonely Labs. We have 20 in Pledge versus Blake and Macwood.
Yeah, and these fights at Lonely Labs certainly are fitting off the name a lot of the time, right? They can be very lonely. You just sort of have the 2 teams here fighting with not many other players nearby to get involved. But if it does drag out too long and the zone pulls in this direction like it has done sort of this game, you can often see teams who understand, hey, these guys are fighting off spawn. If they haven't seen their names fall in the feed, maybe we'll try and get in third party.
Seeing the time being taken here. Very, very passive approach right out of the gates. They realize what's at stake. And you mentioned it yourself, this zone, how prevalent it is. And Blake actually just goes down. He gets taken out by both 20 and Pledge, caught off guard. And now the numbers game is going to ensue between 20 and Pledge, but they got to be careful. Not a lot of resources on their name, especially with Macwood continuing to try and build up. He's trying to separate his opponents into a 1v1, but he gets chopped down right into the palm of their hands and sent back to the lobby early here in game 1.
That's real nice. A great start to the game. Winning your spawn battle is so nerve-wracking. A lot of times players feel like, hey, look, we just got to hope we got better drops and go about our day. What more can we do? Forik and Bolts, they're not having the good side of your spawn so far. Forik doing his best to turn the tide, though, as Bolts watches on. And it's not an impossible situation, just one that is going to be very hard for him with both players just sort of sticking side by side to each other. Not really going to be much of an opportunity for 1v1, you'd think.
Denied an opportunity there. Great job
that's
for them
nice.
playing defensive.
Oh.
You said it yourself. Thoric is just clapping back with a round of applause for that one, taking the fight. And this is a huge momentum shift, because typically it's Bolts you see in those clutch situations.
I love that, though. You see the intuition, thinking on his feet, and catches him out as a result of them. They genuinely were not expecting that at all. They thought, yeah, there's a wall here. We're good, you know, perfectly covered. And he said, nah, I know this spot better than you. And sometimes that's what it comes down to, Jacob, right? Knowledge of your spot. That map knowledge is so key. And he knew, hey, look, I can take shots at them pretty easily behind that.
Kind of got pushed off of Frenzied Field. That's where they begin to land. And this fight over here, you can already see, it starts off with Quanti and Chimp with a 1-0 lead over Peterbot and Larson in the off-spawn battles. And you can see it costs them a lot. Their materials low, ammo low. Now they're going to have to spend a lot of time here trying to mat up, grab those resources. But some of those teams are still battling in the early stages of this game. Pollo and Sphinx, they already have their global championship spot secured with a top 3 placement in Major 2's finals. So for them, it's about practice, building on that chemistry, and making sure that they're set for that global championship.
Yeah, for this duo particularly, it's about rebuilding chemistry.
Yeah.
These guys were on the verge of splitting up even after securing a qualification spot for globals. And so very much, you know, this season could be make or break for their chances. If they can have another good season, it show that, hey, look, they're right back on track. Things are looking hopeful. But Pollo very much wanted to stop playing with Sphinx, and Sphinx wasn't really willing to let him go. So we'll see whether or not they can get back to good spirits, get back on the same page.
You gotta be careful too, because this third party, the longer this one takes, you already see it on the mini-map. Inching closer and closer. Sphinx is gonna get the first on the Capalot. Thanks for the little help from Vanillas. That was that third party. Slowly but surely rotating over. Convict and Vanillas have a ton of experience. For Chapter 3, Season 3, they had a close shot at winning the championship into the final game as Convict lands a monster of a mammoth shot onto Capalot, trying to get away. He's using the wind tunnels, and it does look like he is going to go down, thinking outside of the box to try to escape, but it doesn't work out.
Yeah, Convict with the nice mammoth shot, and Vanilla's finishing it up with AR. And I think that's a combination we'll see plenty of today. At least one player in your team has to be carrying a mammoth. Like, if you're not, what are you playing at? What have you been doing the past couple of days? It is the weapon everybody is talking about because it is so powerful, so effective. In all parts of the game, it's effective, but especially for these teams who are trying to rack up damage for Storm Surge. One headshot here or there throughout the mid-game is going to do you wonders.
This is where Cold, Acorn, they go and travel around this location so much, and you see they're just looking for those players at the top of Mega City. Everybody around the map that's building their surge bases high in the sky to see who he can get damage on himself. And just like Yamto and Rise, Acorn and Cold have a tendency to split up on their drop spot to try to loot as much as possible. And you can see nobody really showing them anything that they're looking for, and that's where they're going to continue to be on the hunt for what they need.
Booga and Frets here on the south side of the map where you can expect to see them. You were saying to me off camera, Jacob, you were surprised by how much space that the region allows them to control here.
Yeah. They command a lot of respect from their game plan. We even saw it last week when Kenjutsu Crossing was contested with 2 teams. Bugha just strolled right on over, took and gobbled up a lot of that loot, and even third-partied along with threats a couple times.
Yeah, and we often talk about people conditioning certain positions when it comes to the end game. But you always begin conditioning right at the start, right? You want to let all the teams in whatever spot you land in know exactly what you're going to do if they are messing around in any sort of way, and Bugha and Threats have definitely done a good job of that.
Interesting fight because Emily and Death are separated across the map. Pump and Degen are close by. They can easily try to 2v1, but you can see that very, very low on resources. This one ends up into a build fight. It's going to be chaotic, and right now with a third-party team coming in, Aminish and Osid is going to be one of them. They're trying to just cause so much destruction, but do they really know how many players are here? I think all they're really seeing right now on their minimap is that somebody possesses that vault key, and they want it for themselves. I'm trying to think. It's got to be Emily and Death on this side of the map that have it. Aminish and Osid probably see it. They're rotating along with them. It's actually Aminish and Osid. So many teams are floating over here towards that Shattered Slabs vault because they see it has not been opened yet. We talk so much about the loot, but it's the mid-map objectives as well. 3 points for capturing and opening up that vault. It doesn't look like anybody's going to contest them for now.
Yeah, not just the 3 points, right? The loot you get from it isn't too shabby either.
Vivid broke this one down before the game. And it's not too far from their drop spot as well. And this team, they actually have studied, along with their coach, they've studied a lot of the possible potential, I should say, weapon cache spawns that do go around them. So that's how they're able to eye and get a lot of this loot, because it spawns between 2 teams, but the Mammoths cause some destruction in Rise's game plan. And that's where those extra slurp juices are going to come in handy.
Yeah. We'll be thankful to have so many of them.
It's probably Kanata and Angels on the other side. But with so much going on very, very early in the map, we talked about a Yamzo Rise. We're going to throw it over to Taco to break down their game thus far.
Thanks so much, Jacob. And the exciting part for Iyamzo and User is that they are the original kings of the castle. Secluded Spire, Slap and Go split, but the castle is really what it's all about just because of the vault that's maintained inside of it. As soon as High Card is spawned, he is quickly eliminated as well, because Rise and User know that all they want is to acquire all of the legendary loot that's inside of it, from slurp juices to the mythic weapons. They just know that they have everything available, so this game could potentially be in their hands. They won the off spawn. Will they win the match?
Yeah, we're going to have a lot of people screenshotting their loot every game because I think a lot of people are going to be thinking, hold on a minute, we cannot be allowing 2 of the best players to have such amazing loot every single game. The vaults, the caches, all go into them. Great positioning and understanding of the map. It's a recipe for success that will keep yielding success as long as they can win the off-spawn fight against Meath and Sync.
I feel like we're seeing a plan in motion right now. Typically, we do see this for teams to kind of get that weapon cache, and then they can keep going from there. This time around, it almost looks like they're planning to use that rift to get on top of Rift Island. It's just the potential. You see a lot of those arrows in the minimap looking in that direction. Seeing, is that 15 points? Is all that loot worth, especially here in game 1? Trashy, Clarity being there, Poyo and Sphinx right below. Bucky and Okus versus Vanilla and Convict. Those are the 2 teams waiting towards that rift. Okus gets tacked up. Vanilla gets dropped down. Convict and Bucky are in the same box, but Convict's doing a good job of trying to bounce around. But Bucky and Okus are just too much too early on. And they're a team, Levin. They're not afraid to go for this Rift Island game after game.
That was incredible. The speed of that fight was just unbelievable. Both teams rapidly making their way up to the island, ascending to the top before one team went crashing down. And Bucky and Okus, like you said, are going to be a team that we see in these fights all day long for this spot. You see it here. Look at a better view from Okus's POV, but landed right with a player in his face. Vanilla's unfortunate there. And they claimed the island with ease, you could say.
That was a good sky angle too. Watching them all drop down. Just Vanilla's landing in the wrong box. Gets taken down. So you can see Rift Island possibly going to Bucky and Okus, who actually are positioned very, very high on the series point leaderboard up into this point. It's almost like a resurgence of Bucky and Okus. I talked about what they were doing in Major 2 and how they were taking advantage. But a new team this season, Trashy and Clarity. You see, they hear all that noise going down nearby, and they're just peeking through the cone, seeing, is this something we can take advantage of, especially depending on where they're at when it comes to Storm Surge? They might have to go.
Ooh. I'm going to keep my eye on everybody with a Mammoth pistol in inventory, because Pledge missed right there, but there'll be a couple times today where we see people make those kind of shots, and boy, oh boy, does it hurt hard, especially if you connect to the head. And if you got the right Augmus, right, Jacob?
Yep. Heavy headshots. If you have a gold Mammoth with heavy headshots, you can deal something about like 190 or so damage.
Goodness gracious.
And typically we do see teams late in the game on rotation, they don't heal up to 100 shields. They try to save and maximize their effectiveness of it. And that's something in this meta with the Mammoth pistol could get you taken down. But you see Kanata and Ager scored the most points across all regions in round 2. I was watching it myself. Kanata just putting on a show. He's one of the players you got to watch out for with that Mammoth on NA.
Yeah, you're right, though, when you talk about players not being able to greed HP, right? You see that happen. I'm personally not a fan of greeding HP anyway. I think you should always try and be as high up as you can be. But for the players who do like to be a bit more risky and save some heals sometimes, you're definitely not going to want to do that this season. I promise you that.
It's almost like when you're tarping, you try to save some builds. It almost has to be ingrained in a lot of teams' brains here as Skittles and Aviv making a far rotation. They're almost daring anybody to peek and take a shot at them. Both of them ready on a whim with that Mammoth to try to take somebody out. Possessed, you got to stop playing with your food here because that could be you who gets eaten up at the end of the day, especially since a rotation is needed, not only by these two teams, but you see 3 more at the top of the minimap that also need to rotate and figure out where they're going to go on what would seem as a minimally congested side of the zone. Bolton Thoric as well. One of the last FNCS West champions trying to rise to the top here on our combined region. And you can see their damage right now when it comes to Storm Surge. 439 above. They already have 2 eliminations because of that early game contested drop between Sync and Minx. So for them, they did a lot of the hard lifting, or hard work, heavy lifting early on in this game, and now they can just sit back, wait for a lot of those opportunities to naturally present itself as it continues on.
Nice shot there from Duke. That'll be nothing more than just a warning shot for an extra bit of damage on the Surge total as they make their way onto zone. Moving through this little river here. Very aware though of all the different players based up on different hills around them. You can see their book and threats causing them a bit of an issue as they try and make their way in.
See, at one point or another, Duke and Edgy, they were just almost instantaneously trying to rotate, get it ahead of a lot of the teams. And without mobility this season, that's going to be one of the keys to success in rotating, especially when you do get a far pull. A lot of those teams on the north side of the map have been running for ages. And that's where you see even Death and Emily from Shattered Slabs, not the best when it comes to those resources. We saw them in the early game scuffle with about 3, possibly even 4 teams, and add on to the fact of the far rotation that they have to go, they're going to be looking for some sort of refresh here. It's all about the information that they're gathering, and as soon as they get to zone, that's where they're going to need to figure out when and where they're going to execute.
I think the big thing here is that they're going to have to try and sort of ward off some of these other teams trying to get onto this side. You have to be very proactive and almost being overly aggressive towards the teams so they don't want to claim the space you're trying to claim. Pause and back up. I'm also focused on just trying to white line into zone and find some sort of position.
This is the combination that kind of scares me. I know even Minimine was talking about a little bit, the Breacher Mammoth combination. And the stat was even yesterday on EU. At the time, more players were getting eliminations with the Mammoth than the AR. And that's what you see in this combination. And the willingness to drop it as the game goes on. You can use any variation of the shotgun with the Mammoth as kind of a double pump. And due to the high damage output of the Mammoth alone, it kind of works as a double pump, the name suggests. So you got to be very, very careful at almost every stage of the game. I don't think any box is safe this season.
Fratch and Pamsu now set up really nicely here in the zone. They're one of the only parts of this side of the zone where there's actually land for you to sort of build on and attach to. Of course, we're tracking their journey back to trying to get to a decent level where there was once a time where Thatch and Pamsu considered one of the best. Of course, injury problems sort of derailed their progress as a team, and so now trying to get back to their best form.
This is going to be a hard kind of rotate for a lot of the teams due to most of the circle being in water, especially the congested side. So it's going to become even more congested at the spots that teams can actually land and get any position at. As Cold gets double tagged up with the Mammoth, taken down. Cold, in the blink of an eye, has to try to disengage. He goes around somewhere else, but runs into another player. Luckily for him, they don't look back and take the time to try to take down Acorn, who makes the risky zipline play across. So far, everything is working out for him, other than the fact that he lost the heavy hitter in Cold.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to be too cynical, but this is one of the problems that you're going to have if you aren't more proactive with your rotates. Rotating in on such a congested side of zone, late rotating in as well. This season, you're just going to get annihilated by somebody with a Mammoth running off somewhere. So Cold and Acorn may feel unlucky to have been caught out in that way. They'll be thinking, oh my goodness, the Mammoths are really doing us in, but the problem starts before that. And now it's going to leave Acorn up as a solo for the remainder of this game, and we've seen him make some crazy solo clutches this season, so isn't out of the realms of possibility, especially with that zone pull as well, pulling up to the north side.
That zone pull kind of scares me on that north side. They try to take a 50-50 at which plot of land they're going to try to base up on him, and a good portion of the lobby chose wrong, and now they're going to have to do a little bit of swimming, figure out how they're going to get across that island to the other side of that hill. Booga and Threats thinking the same thing, but for them, you know them, you can see it here. There is nobody on this side of the map, but the thing that makes it hard is everybody's already based up on the island, ready to go towards the zone, so timing here has to be perfect for Booga and Threats.
Let's see how they do it. Rise and User are sitting in a nice spot. They're not going to have the same worries as Booga and Threats, and we're going to just begin to move in as well to the part of the zone that is expanding. Again, we're talking about teams being proactive. A lot of people right now focus on taking shots, dealing damage for Surge. These guys are focused on where in the zone they actually are positioned. Edgy and Duke not looking in the strongest of positions, and interesting. Booga and Threats having to come in a bit later, using those zip lines, but not actually really being punished for it other than a bit of HP being lost, and so now they can start to build up for height without really anybody being there to contest or stop them.
Wow, just a great rotation, preemptively popping the slurp. Knew they were going to stagger, but the zone pulls all the way back. That could be a blessing for some, as now you get to recycle some of those builds. Kanata and Agers all the way down low towards the low ground. Builds aren't going to be too much of a worry for them. It's about extending themselves upward, getting off of this ultimate low ground, and figuring out how they're going to be one of the first teams to rotate, because they also have that front side of the zone. As it begins to pull, Acorn and Cold, the duo of them both, but it's just Acorn this time around, trying to move around as a solo, and he gets tagged up yet again with that Mammoth. All his shields gone just like that, having to take an extra second, but with the zip line ripping through those builds. really thinking outside of the box to try to make this rotation possible.
Yeah, Acorn is struggling now. Pressure on this layer, pressure from below as well. Needs to have a moment to breathe. And I'm surprised that team there hasn't seen him through the metal. We'll see how far he can get in this game without being seen in that way. Dugan Edgy still moving through on the backside of this zone, sort of patiently waiting to see if anybody can sort of surprise themselves, and that's exactly what will happen. Edgy with a nice find onto Revise.
Even Duke is doing a good job of staying alive. For a second, he even seemed like he got his HP up, but they just get melted in the backside of the zone. You see in the feed, Reet getting busy as well, taking down Bucky. Rise and User, they're trying to battle Bugha and Threats for that high ground. They get chopped and taken down. A huge shot by Rise. He's doing a good job of continuing the pressure. High ground is now theirs.
This is an absolute masterclass. I feel like I'm watching Queasy and Veno from last season. Second moving, they look up and they take it perfectly. Bugha and Threats wiped out from height. Canada and Aegis making an attempt now. But if they're able to do this, I would be well surprised. User and Rise are just so hard to beat up there.
All those mats the Kanata and Aegis had moments ago, they just vanished like a magic trick, and Threats is going to need one of those up his sleeve if he's trying to survive, but the magic runs out. He goes down. Back to Kanata and Aegis, who found an elimination onto Aviv. Late into this game, we're moving into our top 7. Points are so vital. Even Rise is picking up another elimination. Reet goes down. Kanata and Aegis doing everything they can to stay ahead of any problem that they might face, and the biggest problem is that high ground.
Yeah, this is going to be such an interesting game. These players all the way down on low ground have had to traverse so far, so wide. And so with all of them now looking to start to collide, as height seems to be not an option for a lot of these guys. We're going to see some fighting going down. Kanada and Aegis looking now to switch their focus onto claiming low ground. Rise able to dip into the zone and get some extra loot. The extra mats will allow them to keep their position up here.
Even gets that breacher. Now they have like a double breacher combination. No builds are safe. Down low, Ager's making a play. He's able to take down Possess, but it comes at a sacrifice. Kanata gets dropped. 1v2 with all the pressure on his shoulders, going up against Rise and User. And I talked about the double breacher. The pressure is now going to begin. Agers almost has nowhere to go. He gets forced to the backside of the zone, and User gets the final elimination, and they take game number 1, starting their streak off hot.
It is absolutely unfair how good these guys are. Playing a completely different game to what we have seen anybody else in NA playing. The tactics, the strategy, all on point. They have some of the best loot in the game, but they put it to good use. This height take was absolutely beautiful. I said it in the moment. It reminds me of Queasy and Veno's dominance from last game. And at this rate, I wouldn't be surprised if this team was able to have a performance just like that in the grand finals. The way they have played is unbelievable, Jacob.
It almost feels like it doesn't matter if you screenshot their loot. It doesn't even matter if you leak the blueprint, because you cannot stop this team. Vivid told you everything you needed to know and how they're going to do it, and there wasn't one team that was even close to stopping them. 11 eliminations, an incredible start for User and Rise, and this could be it, Levin. This could be their season where they punch their ticket to the Global Championship.
It has to be, right? It's so beautiful to see them pulling up clutch when it matters, right? This is their last big opportunity to do so, and it seems like they're really taking it seriously. A brilliant start to the day. Let's send it back to Zeke and the analysts to break it all down.
Massive game here. When we think back to previous seasons, these guys were a single placement away from qualifying for Global Championships. They took that to heart. They said, you know what? We need to ante up. We need to double down. We need to take the fight to the lobby. These guys went crazy, Vivid. Even stealing away high ground. Just saying, you know what? Let's just take, that's just ours now. Bugha, Threats, step aside. Wow. 11 elims as well, Vivid. What can't they do?
I mean, that's the moment, though, when they actually decide to take high ground, when they actually get it. The way that they went about it was so smart. And like Levin mentioned, this was Queasy Veno style. I mean, going ahead of the moving zone and then looking back, it was done so perfectly to the point where, you know, User was on the backside spraying Bugha and Threats out. They couldn't build up. And whilst they're getting shot out, I mean, Raj just hits a crazy shot to secure the high ground for the rest of the game. Well done.
Well done. I mean, this is absolutely incredible. This is what we like to see from Rise and User, because we've seen their development throughout the chapter. Of course, last season, of course, last major, we talked about how good they are on that low ground. We haven't seen too much from high ground from them up until this season. I think BloodX, their coach, has a big part to play in that, because, of course, he also coaches Queasy and Venno, and they're just masters at the high ground. We've seen it for all of this season in all of the Cash Cups and, of course, in the FNCS weeks. They are willing to take high ground, and these are the results. They're just winning.
Incredible. I mean, listen, we talked about how they were going to pick up that mythic Flapjack and kind of carry it into the mid game and then drop their MK later on, so that way they could still have a lot of pressure when it comes into the end game. And that right there, that decision, that game plan is why they were able to take height. A mythic Flapjack, the high ground team stood no chance.
Yeah, and this is why we had to talk about them, right? At the beginning of the show, because these guys are doing just so well. They appear so dominant, especially in situations like this where it's like, are they doing well? They're like, no, we are. Just watch. And then the whole game is just on its head. Insane. Now, we do want to take a look at our standings. Now, this is just game 1. We have 5 more to go, but let's see how things are going. Obviously, User, Rise, they're at the top, right? 11 eliminations and the Victory Royale. And a little note there, don't forget those objective points. They, of course, did claim that vault. Right behind them, though, Agers and Canada looking to keep up, Vivid. They want to play.
I like this, and I like this for one reason, because Kanata just told us in an interview that, listen, when it comes to Storm Surge, they're going to switch it up a little bit. No more of this basing up stuff. Let's go look for some people that we can prey on and get some sneak shots in, and it worked out perfectly this game.
Yeah, and he spoke about it. He spoke about, of course, that mammoth pistol. He had 2 of them in this game, so he was definitely feeling the aim with that particular weapon. And, of course, these guys are uncontested at Racetrack. I almost feel a little bit more confident in them being uncontested than of course, User and Rise, who are contested. So if User and Rise can't consistently win on spawn today, then they might run into some problems. But for Canada and Ages, a perfect start, because when User and Rise are in the game, there's absolutely no chance for anyone else.
Yeah, they are definitely going to make it difficult to try and operate, right? It is a lot like, in that way, right? They're in the lobby. Suddenly, you just aren't allowed to play because he's just running around dictating where you can and can't go. These guys are doing that. Let's take a look at the standings again. A couple more duos to highlight here before we jump into the next set of games. Remember, once again, 5 more ahead of us, but let's take a look. We see in that 3rd place, we watched these guys. They were holding on, 5 eliminations, the 62 points, so high up in that placement. Even someone like Baka and Pars, right? These names that we're kind of used to seeing a little bit week to week. Pars, I feel like, when have I not seen Pars in a lot of ways? Like, this guy's just been around forever. I want to see the high placement coming out after today.
Yeah, duo definitely to keep an eye on when it comes to making it to the end game pretty consistently. As you can see here, it's going to be the low ground. It's going to be favored by this duo, because once they get a hold of it, mechanically, they can do very, very well.
Yeah, they really can. And what I noticed about this duo is they're actually reusing some of those builds from all the other teams in the mid-game to rotate. Yeah. Of course, with this Mammoth pistol being in the game, everyone is overbuilding in mid-game to try and guarantee that you're inside of the zone. Packer and Par just thought, you know what, we'll just use those as our own rotation. And that's what got them into the late stage of the game. And that's why they were able to get a solid placement, even without too many crazy refreshes.
I do want to highlight as well, Booga, Threats, they're in 10th place, right?
Yep.
Now, envision this game had gone differently, right? Envision a game where User and Rise did not turn around and just 166 them to the dome with the Breacher and just say, you're done playing. Nice try, stop, right? Like, even in a situation like that, these guys still end in 10th place, Vivid. There's so many big names that are just going to make serious impact to these standings over the next 5 games.
Listen, you're talking about Booga and Threats right now. Let me take a second to tip my hat to them, because, me and Minnie, we were talking as that game was going on, and they were like on an island, and they had to rotate into like 40 players, and we were like, yeah, how are they gonna do that? And it was genius. They went ahead, tanked the storm, took a late zip line ride, and then they were on high ground, which of course we know how that ended up, working out later on, but they had it. I loved seeing that from them.
Yeah, that was a really great play. Just making sure that they could use all of that experience to know we don't have to run into zone. We have the heals to sustain ourselves. And then, of course, because you are so late, everyone else has already positioned themselves in the game. So you know if there's no high ground. You know if there's no one that's set up for that play. So they could just survey the area, think, actually, no one's going for it. Why not? Let's have a go. And, of course, ultimately, it didn't quite work out for them just because of Ryze's classic, incredible play at the front side of zone. They didn't really have enough materials to tarp to that side. But really, really great stuff from this duo. And, of course, that was a zone that was right in their back garden, so I wouldn't expect too much less from them. So we'll see how they do on the maybe the further pulls.
Love to see it. There's so many things these duos and NA are looking to show us right. Big plays, little tech things like that rotation, so clean. And of course, with 5 more games to go, we still have a lot to see. So you know what? It is time. Game number 2 is upon us. Let's send it back on over to our casters to get things started.
With how incredible this season has been up until this point, User and Ryze, they have to be the team to beat, from Cash Cups to third-party tournaments and everything in between. They are looking like the strongest competitors.
Yeah, 100%, by far and away. And look, I'll give you some insight here on just how strong these guys are. Some of the best EU teams, I won't say their names, I don't want to name and shame them, but just beware. Like, I'm talking FNCS champion level teams have been watching these guys and are like desperately trying to learn what these guys are doing. That's how you know it's on a different level, right? These guys are unbelievable this season. They have everything down, pinpoint to a key, and it's working. We're seeing that here in game 1. I'm sure if they can win off spawn, we'll see it in game 2 as well.
Yeah, everybody's talking about the POI. The POI, it's a slap and go split between the two. And to me, it's not just that. And it's not even just the vault that lands there. It's everything that they're doing from start to finish in every single game. I think Ryze has really emerged as the go-to IGL this season due to the lack of mobility. And we're going to figure out if he can continue that streak, because game 2 is right now.
Game number 2 begins, and we have seen plenty of top-level NA Fortnite already this weekend. But I think that game there showed exactly why THEIMPACTPLAY and Ryze are considered the #1 team right now in the land. Everything they did was so on point. But unfortunately for them, they might not even get a chance to do that again if they can't win this fight off spawn. User lands first. Ryze lagging behind a bit, but User already picking up sync. And he might look to pick up Meath as well. Oh, goodness gracious. Making it look easy. User 1386EA99F7. Picking up both of limbs.
That's a username I'm gonna remember for all of my days. Ryze, he stutter stepped. He disengaged altogether. And User just dominate. I told you, it's not just the drop spot. It's them as players. They're like cybernetic organisms.
To get this limb. Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, Quanti won't be getting that one. And so now there's actually a real chance here for Larssen to come out through and win it. He's got shield. Chip doesn't. My, how does that happen? Quanti and Chimp. I think that's a bit of a choke from them. They shouldn't have won that, Jacob.
It looked like Peterbot was playing it creative there for a second, trying to go for some highlight plays so he could upload it later, going up and down the zip line, trying to make a cheeky wall grab, and he goes down. But the lucky thing for him is before he goes down, he at least took down Quanti. And the thing here is that Siphon didn't necessarily help Chimp at all. None of the mats, because Larssen knew exactly he was weak, probably had Peterbot screaming in his ears to go, 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 and finish that elimination.
Quanti will be kicking himself there, because there is no reason he shouldn't be picking up that limb. He already put in all the hard work. All he had to do is just hit him like once or twice with a couple bullets and it would have been done, but apparently not here. So Peterbot and Larssen's story will continue, and that rivalry will continue. Of course, Peterbot was playing with Quanti and decided he didn't want to play with him anymore and he would instead play with Larssen. Now both these teams contesting each other off sport, and that is always interesting to watch that kind of rivalry happen.
And the thing is, I'm not sure Peterbot and Larson know how lucky they just got. Reed and Ritual were ready to clean that one up. They smelt the weakness, and they were going, but Tony and Cat just beamed them with the MK Alpha from the side, stopped them in their tracks. And now everybody here is going to have to think about what they're going to do, because Tony and Cat, they got their surge. They've done what they needed to do in this position, and they're just going to disengage and go on with the rest of their game. I like it. Ooh, we saw this one last game, and ended up a little bit quicker than this one is going on right now. A little bit of a slower approach between the two teams with 20 and Pledge. It looks like Pledge taking a good amount of HP damage. So they're just going to take their time, be a little patient. I wouldn't be surprised if both teams even disengaged out of this one, trying to give themselves a better chance on the day. It's just Ibuga and Threats. Nothing different going out between them, and already it looks like somebody's just hiding towards Kenjutsu. That's Pal and OMG Me Too towards the bottom. I don't know if Threats Buga know they're there, but this could be a good opportunity with the high ground that they have. You add in the Mammoths to do a ton of damage on their opponents.
Miro and Cooper, a team we will be seeing at the Global Championships.
I was a little surprised to kind of see them switch drop spots, but seeing where they're at now, I get it. They got access to the vault. They got access to rifts on this side of the map. They have everything that they need and more. One team that's taken a passive approach back on over towards Lonely Labs. We talked about the capture point. You get all the loot, push your opponents off, and Lonely Labs is still in the zone, just like last game. Just dipping their toe in to test the waters. Is it too cold? Is it warm? Nobody really ready to make that plunge into the deep end just yet, but the longer they take, you see that Lonely player towards the north side of Lonely. Potential for surge there.
So I've just received a message from the coach of Yomzo and Rise after that win. And he has said to me, I should stop leaking their strategies. And so now when it comes to Yomzo and Rise, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not going to say anything other than how amazing they are.
But that's the thing, though. I feel like at this stage of the game, everybody's got to know their strategy. It's all about planning to try to stop it. So I would give that coach a round of applause. He's taught them well. He's taught them well. Oh, Miro and Cooper versus Baka and Pars. Two heavyweight of teams here going at it. Cooper is going to get dropped down low, but he at least takes down Baka and the Siphon. But a flank from Miro is going to take down Pars as well. It's over just as quick as it began.
That was a really nice shot to close that one up by Miro. And of course, that 5x in his name, just reminding all of us who he is, that we shouldn't ever really be counting him out. Always capable of turning it on when necessary. Blake and Macquid back here over at the Lonely Labs. We get to see part 2 of this battle between these teams. And this time around, it's lasted a bit longer, it seems, Jacob. We're deep into the game now, and these guys are still going at it here.
Yeah, and Blake and Macwood, they have the advantage here. That third party did come in, and they took down 20's teammate Pledge. So he kind of has to stay over on this side of the map. Luckily for him, Zone is here, so he does have a lot of time. But you see the strategy coming out from Rise and User. Yet again, you see the 3-weapon loadout, the Flapjack, the MK Alpha, and the Sharp Tooth combined with 2 heals. They know somebody's here. BQ-defied towards the top, Digital towards the bottom. I feel like they won the first game of round 2 yesterday or the day before. And they were on fire ever since. Same thing for Rise and User. Nobody really wanted to bite off more than they can chew too early on, especially since Rise and User are approaching from the low ground.
Yeah, what can I say? Sorry, look, by order of Blood X, I can't comment on any strategy here. So I'm just gonna say they gotta keep doing what they're doing and move it on. Fretz and Booga. There is no court order on these guys. I can talk freely about them, and what I will say is, I think we've definitely seen an improvement from these guys when it comes to some of their mid-game rotations and being able to get through difficult situations, being adaptive, being flexible.
They've seen almost every facet of every game so far. Because they land here and there's not that many teams, they command a lot of respect. They only have those 2 eliminations so far, and you see them taking all the time in the world, but with Pledge still alive, we're seeing how it happened. The 3-2-1 coming out from Playify and Static, Mammoth and the MK down in the blink of an eye. And you're really seeing the Mammoth this season take over these games. No more peeking for no reason. You have to make sure that every second you spend in the open is a second that you're at least watching your back. Don't peek him.
It's just so it's like having a sniper rifle, but that you ain't got to worry about like the bullet drop stuff. You know, it's like you finally can be Thomas HD without having to be Thomas HD.
I think you're right, because sometimes I'm feeling too nice with the Mammoth myself. But you can see they boxed up on their loot cache, extra slurps, agers around the block somewhere else, making sure that they solidify all the surge that they're looking for. NPen and Byla switched up their drop spot last week, trying to find something new. Bucky and Okus, we've seen them battle for Rift Island in that last game, and right now they're just trying to take control of this loot cache. Primarily for the extra slurps, because if you look at their loadout, they're kind of stacked up already.
Yeah, it doesn't really get much better than this other than adding maybe a couple more slaps. So that's what they'll do.
Eight of the top 10 teams from week 1 are competing today.
With them all competing today, an opportunity for them to really secure their spot in the grand finals of this season, right? If you're able to get 2 top 10 performances in back-to-back weeks, it's probably going to be enough series points for you to secure a spot, and so
that's the thing. While some teams had that good week number 1, others are going to have a huge performance here. Fatch and Pamsto being one of them. They missed out on that opportunity. And now, so that they don't kind of put themselves in a tough situation, I think a top 10 performance is going to be needed. Otherwise, it's going to be all or nothing in week 3. And right now, you're seeing it kind of break down. They spot Blake and Macwood in the distance. The Mammoth pistol out yet again. And Blake gets caught sleeping and gets put down for a nap.
oh man. It's just so brutal, Jake. What can I say at this point? You saw them lining it up, and from that moment onwards, there was nothing Blake could do. Caught out, lurking in the shadows, Pamsu and Fatch, perched up on that hill, just watching their prey prance about with not a care in the world before sending them right back to the lobby.
And now they have the least congested side on the southern portion of the map. And as a lot of teams are looking to get Storm Surge, throw it over to Taco to see how these teams are getting their Surge.
Well, if it's anything like what we just witnessed, Jacob, Kanata certainly keeping his eyes still set on the Mammoth pistol, even taking full advantage of the vending machine available at Racetrack. We know that they're uncontested at this drop spot, so Kanata obviously trying to acquire as much heavy ammo as possible off that vending machine just to ensure that he's set for this Mammoth pistol, even utilizing a hollow chest in order to upgrade to an epic Mammoth pistol, and we see him getting some really nice tags onto Bucky. If there's anything, he's confident with his shot on this Mammoth pistol.
Really seeing the Mammoth pistol shape up this lobby, and it makes it to where awareness is so much more important than it has ever been. Obviously, you want to be aware of your surroundings, aware of teams, aware of players next to you on rotation. Now you need to be aware of players almost 100 meters away. which is quite difficult for a lot of these teams.
I think the problem is, though, Jacob, right, is that players have already had to be aware, right? You know, from the beginning of time in competitive Fortnite, you have to be aware. That is just the nature of Fortnite. The problem is in most cases, if you do get caught out for not being aware, you can recover to some extent, right? You might take a couple tags and you're like, okay, cool, I wasn't aware, cool. Now I wake up, now I know what I'm doing, I heal up. Now, if you get caught out not being aware, it's just, you're just gone, you're knocked, you're finished, it's over for you.
Yeah. I think the combination of the Mammoth and Augments, and then if you have your teammate there with first Assault and an MK, that literally is one shot from both of them. And you see Bucky and Okus fighting over that Rift Island once more. It's going to be a big opportunity.
And another game where they're up here and they're winning the fight on Rift Island. We know this is what they want to do game after game. And you see here in this replay, hitting massive shots to be able to do that. That peek there from Bucky is absolutely nasty. And they rightfully will claim that Rift Island.
And they took down one of the most aggressive teams in round 2, in Ritual. That's a team, you get them out of the lobby early and makes your late and end game that much easier going around the map. Duke and Edgy, they already have one elimination so far. Then you go over towards Rumble Ruins this time around. Much different drop spot than the Steamy Springs when they won their FNCS championship, but it just goes to show when the changes come around the map, the new meta, different weapons added into the loot pool, you're gonna have to change up your game, and for some that means changing up the drop spot altogether.
You asked me this yesterday. Where do you land, Jacob? What's your drop spot?
Typically, I have a rule that I don't pick the drop spot because I have a lot of bad luck that likes to follow me around, but...
Bad luck or you're just bad?
In this season, I would have to say maybe Shady Stilts. I like the new jungle biome. You can have some fun, save a lot of heals.
Okay.
Right near Sunspoon Lagoon, where I had a lot of fun capturing those quests. Zuko and Possess having some fun towards Mega City. Second game in a row.
Yeah, they had a really good game. Game 1, sitting in 3rd coming into this one.
See if they can continue that pace. The consistency is going to be key. And I like what they're doing here. They're just trying to get away from all these teams that are staggering themselves backside of zone that are probably not as good as they are on Surge. So they're just trying to separate themselves. That way, if they do get beeline, they have some time to figure out what they're going to do. Acorn and Cold, they did more than enough to solidify their position on that Surge leaderboard, over 1,000. And now they're getting able to pick and choose what resources they want to take along with them. Unlike the 3 hills out of Rising User that we're seeing take place, it does look like they're going to go ahead and have that Mammoth along with that MK Alpha. Truly a game changer this season. We're able to see a lot so far, and you're seeing those extra heals getting tossed. They don't want to go back in the zone for them if they need them, so they're just trying to toss them into the zone, kind of something in their pocket for later.
Hamsu and Thatch. I mean, we talk about good loot, doesn't really get as good as this. They are looking really nice. 4 slots in inventory of Hamstu max materials. Of course, mythic munitions, giving him that mythic pistol. Pump that hits very hard, and then of course, well, most people will say it's the best weapon in the game right now, the Mammoth in hand. That's a really nice setup to have going into this game.
Yeah, and you take note, they were just going deeper into the zone. They know that south side of where it's at now is going to get congested by a lot of the teams, particularly NPen and Bila, who are going to be forced to travel north. First, they're going to pop that slap smash. That way they can get as much distance covered as possible. This season, due to the lack of mobility and the addition of the Mammoth pistol, you really don't want to get caught behind a lot of these other teams, because that's where you're going to get stuck. You're going to be forced to box up, and then you're just kind of stuck. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these early rotations from our top teams. Wow. Narrowly missing that shot. Oh, I can already tell right now. Threats has the augments. He has the swift reload with his pistol, so that Mammoth is going to be able to get used quicker and quicker every single time. And that's the thing this season. I talked about it yesterday, talked about it again today. You could actually combine a lot of your augments to kind of up your game. You know, you combine soaring sprints with glider redeploy, and that allows you to kind of redeploy while you're sprinting. We talked about the heavy headshots with the Mammoth. I think this season allows for a lot of flexibility in your game plan.
Yeah, for sure. Byler caught, trying to run his way on in. Gonna be expending a lot of wood to just try to stay alive. What do we have here? Peterbot. He's down, and so that leaves Larson trying to pick up the pieces. Ooh, gets caught out behind his peak there, and now trying to regroup with his teammate, try to keep him alive in this game. I don't know if they'll let him get a res off, though. I don't think they will.
Yep.
No chance.
Doesn't look like Lightning can strike twice in this game. Larson was able to pull it off once in the early game off-spawn battle, but not the second time. But Osid and Aminished do a good job of taking advantage in a 1v2 situation, getting all the loot that they can, and pushing themselves above the Storm Surge threshold. As you look around the lobby, some teams might not be faring so well, which is forcing them into unfavorable fights they might not necessarily want to take, but that's just the name of the game if you don't have your plan set in stone.
So Canada running their way on in now. You see him, Aegis just looking side to side, making sure nobody's got his eyes out on him, and they found a really good timing because there was really nobody taking any sort of shots at them. Everyone focused more so on their own rotations.
213 above. They actually just got a cache not too long before rotating in towards these zones. Those heals being that much of a difference maker. We'll talk about those heals. NPen and Byler are going to need some eventually. 3 slap splashes isn't going to be enough to last them into the end game, especially you combine that with the fact that they are down on Surge for now. NPen found somebody he feels comfortable at least starting this engagement with. Piece control goes over. That's Pollo and Sphinx on the other side, and the tags are there. Byla just takes a huge amount of damage, being forced to pause for some concern. Storm Surge now dealing the most damage. Byla is going to go down. NPen now fighting for his life here, trying to bulldoze into the box. A ton of damage, gets above the threshold, but gets taken down by Sphinx, who also loses Pollo along the way.
So close. NPen did a nice job there. I really thought he was going to do it for a moment. Sphinx, though, left as this solo player, left lurking around, trying to pick up some scraps, any bit of extra loot and materials. He's maxed out in that regard for the most part, so definitely has enough mats to keep him ticking in this game for a while.
Good rotate by Miro and Cooper, just going above and over everybody, just trying to get to the zone as fast as possible. And you can see they're using a lot of their wood early on. That way they can save their hard mats for a situation like this. As they try to drop down low, they're going around the teams that are trying to gatekeep on the bridge. They didn't pay the troll toll. Now they're becoming the focus. Cooper's going to go down. That's going to be something they regret at the end. But now Miro by himself. And that almost leaves me no worry because we know Miro is one of the most prolific clutchers in the game right now.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than Miro in a clutch situation. You know he's always bound to hit some shots, and he'll put himself in positions to do that over and over again. But with his material count starting to dwindle and still so much time left in this game, so much distance, so much ground to be covered, he's gonna have to find that refresh sooner rather than later.
Might be too early to hold on to it for now. You see Paper and Muzz into the distance. Another team taking height, front side of zone. Kanata and Aegis now forced to think about what their rotation is going to be. If they try to hold on to height, it is going to be a battle. Now it's about which layer seems more comfortable to rotate through. User and Rise find the most comfortability on that ultimate low ground. They spot a team across. That's Duke and Edgy, who trade for shots. It's Rise and User who come out on top in that exchange, and you can see them staggering themselves back. They don't want to rotate too early. They're waiting for that perfect timing, and now the elevation is going to change for the two. It could be a battle for the high ground in our future.
You see them mirroring height there as well. just making sure to tarp underneath. Thatch and Pamsu have no idea where they are, can't see them. And they'll continue to tarp out for now, thinking that height is all nice and cozy. There's a good chance that changes at some point soon with Yomzo and Rai still lurking in the lobby.
Spotted out on the side. Gained the attention of Thatch. His threats does go down to Cold. And Acorn still doing a good job together. Now Bugha stuck by himself. No heals to his name, but we know he could pop off at a moment's notice. And depending on what he finds, that's going to be the treasure. He's just biding his time, waiting for that perfect timing on the rotation. Kanata and Age is the same, peeking through the cone for information. Slap Splash going down right before the rotation. And this is where it's going to begin. You see they're running low on resources.
Kanata trying to snake his way through some of these builds. And he's saving a lot of mats, and mats will need to be saved, but there are players that might just get caught out along the way. He needs to start being proactive, looking around a bit more. Miro now chanking in the zone a bit, using that med mist to try to stay alive, try to outlast some of these players. Maybe catch anybody else out who's doing similar to him.
This is his chance here to try to sneak up on anybody that he can. He's pretty healthy as well. He drops down low. He knows he only has a very little materials to work with, but something is better than nothing for Miro. Even finds some old recycled builds to move through, but he's taking a ton of damage and very little on the med mist to recoup. But he's doing a good job of escaping by. User and Rise, they have the high ground, but the pressure has now been turned. They steal it away from Pamsu and Thatch, but he's not giving it up without a fight. He goes up, over, and even chops down his opponents. User's taking that advantage to try to drop down onto somebody else, but the fight will continue.
But Yusuf doesn't really have the builds, and you see that's why he's playing a bit more conservatively. We know how aggressive he is. We know he likes to take fights, but without the builds to do so, he's just having to rely on his movement and some shotgun aim. Rises down, and so that leaves him just dancing around all these builds. You see the mantle coming through, and finally a regroup.
I don't know how Rise is doing it, but he's staying alive tenfold. High ground switches hands yet again. Clarity and Trashy now claim their throne high up in the sky, and they're just trying to connect it. Trashy takes a little bit of fall damage. Clarity's going to go ahead and follow him hip to hip. That's the name of the game a lot of the teams are fighting through. Yasir and Dorito, the same thing. And with Rise down, User makes a big play, taking down Bryce, but 46 HP in a dream. He's looking towards the backside of zone. This is his chance. He finds Thoric. Another Siphon goes through, but he finally gets shut down by Visuals.
And look who it is to capitalize on everybody else's chaos. Acorn and Cold, they're now set in the prime position. 8 elims so far this game, and plenty of opportunities to add to that tally.
Yep, top 4 we go. Everybody is alive as duos, but as I say it, 2 of them fall just like that. And now we have Dig versus Dig. Duke and Edgy on the low ground, Acorn and Cold on the high ground. And this is going to be a battle between 2 of the biggest titans here on the region.
Yeah, and the zone's pulling underneath this bridge, and that might cause a bit of delay in this fight. You see now Acorn and Cole starting to drop down. They want to get it done with before so, but now both teams just waiting as we pass over this bridge leisurely. Once we come up on that other side, things are going to get chaotic and fast. You see it right now. Cole dropping down, hits one shot, looking for another, and Acorn and Cold will win the game. 12 elims as well. Had to wait a second. The zone stopped the fight from happening for just a moment, but once they came up from the other side of that bridge, it was an all-out battle, and one that Acorn and Cold took with ease.
Yeah, you said it yourself. It was a little pause as it goes underneath the bridge. Cold waited a second, and that was it, because he went down, he hunted, he finished it off, and even heard a mammoth shot being fired. So we're seeing it huge in these end games, even in these 2v2 situations. And there it goes yet again. Down goes Duke. Down goes Edgy. Cold and Acorn, even though they already have their championship spot, they already have Major 1 underneath their belt, and they are hungry for more.
Yeah, look, I think with Rise and Yomzo being so dominant, with Yomzo, obviously, he's the fragger in that team. He's the one a lot of the time making the highlight plays. I think Cold is looking at the region going, hold on, everybody. I'm still the best player in this land. And those final moments there, those couple of shots, a big reminder of just what Cold is able to do. Acorn and Cold, one of the best teams in this region, and they're showing everybody why.
Yep, and after 2 games, you're seeing a lot of teams really separate themselves from the rest of the pack. But we're going to throw it over to Zeke and the gang to break it all down.
Acorn and Cold are here just to play spoiler. They're like, hey, we already got our spot, but we're just going to make sure we continue to assert dominance. That anytime you feel safe, anytime you can look up and think high ground, there's no one that scary up there, joke's on you. It's us. We have 12 eliminations. We are going to show you why we have earned our spot back in Major number 1.
You know, shout out to game number 2 right there, because I think for the first time this season on EU and NA combined, the amount of times that whoever had higher ground changed more than like 5 times, right? Like, that was the first time we've actually seen a big battle for it throughout the end game.
Yeah, that was absolutely crazy. I mean, we saw, of course, Pamsto and Fat all the way up on high, and that's to be expected, realistically. They're at Snappy Shores, of course, they're landing there. They usually take high early, of course. The team that is, you know, getting the zone that is at their drop spot, they're always taking high early, but then it's up to the Disruptors. And the Disruptors in this game were about 3 or 4 different teams. Of course, Acorn and Cole went up for it. They ended up getting it at the end, but of course, Rise and User, those guys went up, and they just didn't have enough material. So it was Acorn and Cole that were able to get all of those refreshes down on low ground. Of course, gave them the ability to take out all the players that needed to be taken out. Of course, 10 eliminations at that point, 12 total. That is a feat.
The team fire was also on point and disgusting. That was just game 2. Man, I thought game 1, Victory Royale, eliminations, I was like, okay, yeah, that's probably the highest we're going to see. Nah, Acorn and Cold said, don't worry about it. We can one up it. We get up. Hold on. Just wait. Now, of course, let's take a look at the standings. After 2 games, how are things looking? Remember, last game, Victory Royale came from Rise and User, and they're currently holding down that number 1 spot. Still, they managed to put a few things together, getting another 6 eliminations to hold down the number 1 spot. Aegis and Kanata not that far behind, but take a look, Vivid. Acorn and Cold up 18 places, breaking into triple digits and saying, hold on, you guys want to play? Let's play.
Yeah, I mean, they closed that game out very, very well, but it was actually up against our second major winners and Duke and Ezzy, right? So that final 2v2 towards the end of that game was really, really fantastic. But I gotta tip my hat to Kanata and Aegis right there as well, because they were one of those teams that made it into the end game once again, which is why we see them in 2nd place.
Yep, those surge strategies are working out for Kanata and Aegis. We saw them, again, getting into that late game. Of course, the consistency for this duo, this is what I talked about before this game. If they can keep this up whilst being uncontested, the surge is looking good, the rotations are looking very good as well, and Kanata hitting his shots with that Mammoth. If they can continue, they're definitely in for the 1st place spot, because this is a team that have done it before. They've been the favorites all the way back in Major number 1, and now, hopefully for them, they're trying to rekindle some of that success.
Dude, some of the shots he's taking, you know, when Kanata, of all people, he's one of those guys, in case you are not familiar with him, when he says he is good with a weapon, he is good with the weapon. And that's what we heard from an interview at the very beginning of the show. He was like, hey, look, I'm good with the Mammoth. He was not lying. And we're going to see more games, more shots like that. Wow. Okay, a couple more duos to highlight before we jump back into more of the games. Of course, User and Rise as well. We have to talk about them. Again, this is a duo that missed out on qualification back in Major number 1, and they are hungry for that spot to Global Championships. This is that time. I feel like if they could just put together a good day today, Vivid, we could very well see them competing in Grand Finals just 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, and the strategy is very, very clear, and I think it's working out so far, right? They're making it into the end game. We think their mid game, their early game is very, very strong, even considering that they are contested. That high ground attempt take right there, I mean, only like 20 builds to work with on each of them respectively. It just ended up not being enough, so I gotta go ahead and question that decision myself just a little bit. Maybe, you know, find a refresh before you go up for that. Nonetheless, still another great game out of them.
You can't question their confidence, though. These guys are feeling it right now. To go up with 20 builds and just sort of bank on the fact that you are going to take out those players on the high ground, that takes some doing, and that's a really, really great aspect of this duo that we haven't really seen from them before going into this season, so I'm excited to see if they can continue that today.
And I want to put your eyes here. 8th place, Pamstu and Fats. Remember, these guys missed out last week. They did not make it to finals week of last week. Now, they are looking to say, okay, with Pamstu's clutch, we have to be here. We have to make plays. We have to put points on the series point leaderboard if we want to continue our FNCS run. They did have high ground there for a while. Though we did see the great high ground shakeup, they still know how to hold that and make it work for them, Vivid.
Yeah, this is very, very exciting in my opinion, right? They know how to go ahead and take it in one of those earlier moving zones. So I definitely think we could, see them up there again and definitely take home a victory royale as well.
Yeah, they just couldn't get those refreshes when they're up there. Of course, when you're all the way up on high that early on, all the teams down below, they're getting all the refreshes while you just have to use what you have. Very, very difficult stuff for them, but I'm excited for them.
Absolutely. Well, with 4 more games to go, let's keep this running. I want to see more action from NA, so our casters are standing by with game number 3.
Look, Zeke says he wants to see more action, so we're going to give Zeke what he wants. He's the boss around here, isn't he? So look, 4 more games left. The first 2 have been just star-studded, right? We've seen the best of the best teams in the region showing up in the end moments. Really, really big, Jake.
Yeah, and this is the thing that really separates a lot of our heavy hitters against everybody else, is showing up in these finals lobbies, in these round 3s. It's great to build that momentum in round 1 and in round 2, be at the top of the leaderboards and go into those finals, but those series points, this is where you gather all those points to move up those leaderboards and get into the grand finals. So for some of those teams, this is the last game before the half and the last chance to really give themselves a cushion or make up for lost time.
Yeah, I think a lot of these players are starting to get a good feel for the lobby and what it is going to take to be able to win these games, or at least accumulate a good amount of points. And I think consistently throughout the first 2, we've seen certain teams just do things better than others, right? When you look at Bucky and Okis when it comes to the vault, of course, all the high ground action, so much going on all throughout the game, and even more coming here in game number 3. Let's jump right in.
We're ready here for the last go around before the half, game 3 of 6 on the day. We've already seen some contested fights right out of the gates separate a lot of the teams, and we're going to see it here yet again. Meeks and Sync, they need to be able to fight back, and right now they have that first MK Alpha. They get it grabbed on the other side, but they didn't get the loot. Rise versus Meeks, there goes the battle, and it looks like Meeks is going to get the first knock. Sync's there on the other side, but a trade between User and his opponent. Sync's doing what he can, and this is where it is. What's the loadout looking like on the low ground?
It's all up to User with just this pistol in hand. And that is going to be so crucial because Sync only has an AR, and I think User picked up an SMG as well to use, and he might even pick up Rise as well with the res.
This is where do you make the decision to try to go back in with all the time that's wasted, or do you try to disengage? It does look like he's going to choose option A, try to finish what he started, but it might be the thing that does him in the end, especially with only a Havoc suppressed AR. Just like that, it goes and happens yet again. Rise and User win the fight.
So close, yet so far for the consort duo. And unfortunately for them, in a game where it looked like potentially they were going to turn the tide, it is not going to happen. And of course, even User taunting as well after every single win, right? Emoting on them. I think he actually even tweeted that he's going to be landing at the Sakuda Spire in the Console Cup. Some unnecessary trash talk from him there. Leave him alone. FNCS is yours. Let them have the Console Cups, Rise and User. No need for that.
That's just going to be fight number 2 in the Console Cup if it happens, because that's what they're practicing for on that side. But Swirl's already down. Aoxy's playing his best game of hide and seek here against Bolt and Thoric, waiting for them to get bored. But since they know that he's here, it's only a matter of time before they find him. And it does look like they're going to search every single nook and cranny until they figure out where Aoxy is at. But one that's went each way, 1-1 between the two, Peterbot and Larson versus Quanti and Chimp. Peterbot this time just disengaging just a little bit. A little bit of an interesting decision, knowing how aggressive Peterbot can be, but they want to give themselves the best chances throughout the day, even if that means splitting the loot.
Oh, what do we have here? Lonely Labs. It looks like that team from the north, I think it's Player Fire and Static, have decided they want to start third-partying this battle because it has been lasting relatively long. And I did say that would be a possibility in game 1 because when you're desperate for Surge, you'll look any way to try and get it. A good thing for Blake and Macwood is that they finished this fight out before Player Fire and Static have been able to jump in. So now they'll be able to reset and get ready for another fight.
Yeah, Blake was spotting that one. Fool me once, shame on me. Or shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, as Blake sees this one coming from a mile away. Another mammoth shot gonna be hit, just backing down his opponents. Doesn't even look like there's too much to fight for other than just damage on Surge, because Blake and Macwood back to looting up. Acorn and Colt, we saw them come out on top in that last game. Haven't changed up too much from last season and their drop spot, their overall plan. We talked about User and Rise splitting up on their drop spot. Acorn and Colt do the same thing. They try to cover as much ground as possible, get as much loot as possible, while simultaneously working on their Surge. One side of the map today. The next Degen over towards Shattered Slabs. Does look like they might try and split it this time around. Or at least up until the vault spawns. That's when things might change up just a little bit. It's Emily and Death that also spawn towards the south side of Shattered Slabs, if they're even still here. Sphinx and Poyo just ready to take any challenge that's in front of them. Shonye and Capel out on the other side. Sphinx just taking layer by layer, trying to get the pieces underneath his control. You got Poyo on top, just trying to block off any exit. No, the launch pad is there, and that's why you see cones placed. No exit strategy gonna be given up, and Poyo and Sphinx just keep putting that pressure down. You gotta be careful, you know as well as I do. As long as these fights go, the harder it's gonna be for them to try to survive as the third party begins to move in their direction.
Yeah, and the thing is, based on how these games have gone so far, we've seen Poyo and Sphinx make it deep into games, but it's been cut off for them at times due to bad surge management. And so this fight is so crucial for them in terms of being able to get some damage and stop them from having the problems they're having when they get later into the game.
Disengage from one fight into another. Peterbot doing a good job of making sure that Larson has an exit towards the back, and a nice shot being fired as soon as he hops over. Tony's gonna go down. That one's gonna instantly be cleaned up. Refresh and Siphon Matt's going on over, and a quick peek from Larson as well. Duo beginning to get online and warmed up.
That's really nice. Not fighting up against Chimp and Quanti this time round. This time it's another duo, but a fight that they'll come out on top of regardless.
Wow. Not easy. Just push Reap back. It is a 2v1. They're trying to take control of every single piece. Paper's just hopping above. Two different angles between the two. Ritual's down. Reach trying to return. Starts the res, but gives away his position, so that one's going to be impossible as Muzz and Paper continue to push forward. The elimination is going to be cleaned up. Muzz still low on HP, so one-shot potential is there. Reach finds the time to fire back at least once on the Muzz. Just quick movement between the two. They're just cutting off every exit, every play Reed tries to make, and now pushing him back towards the outside. Third party's coming in as well, making it harder for him to survive. But a nice shot on the Paper. Peekaboo goes around, deals damage on the Muzz, but the quick spray, Reed's gonna go down, but the third party, the focus comes in. That's Chubbs and Bryce on the other side of that mountain. But they give them time to stabilize their position here. They feel like they probably already got a lot of damage on the Reed, so their job is done.
Yeah, and I don't mind that, right? You don't have to overextend, you don't have to be overambitious. Get some damage, get an elim, and reset. Possessed and Zuko. Over on this side of the map, I think one of the cool things we see is the teams who like to play for Surge a bit more sneaky beaky like, right? Try and make these plays where they catch teams off on the extremities. And we saw it last game. I'm sure we'll see it this game with the Mammoth pistol. It's so much better now for trying to catch teams out, right? If you can line up a 3-2-1 timing and then hit a player, not much they can do to respond.
It's almost like any AR, any combination of long range mixed with that Mammoth is going to be a 3-2-1 one-shot between the two. Poyo and Sphinx. You've seen them in this fight early on, still continuing. surprised nobody's moving over in this direction to try to interrupt, but that's better for Pollo and Sphinx as they continue to try to aggress, take away the pieces one by one, backing down both Shonye and Polo. Neither team really wanted to give up here. That's the interesting thing. Whoever disengages because the launch pad is blocked off without mobility just risks so much potential damage to make that a possibility. And that's why you're seeing them stay in this for so long. But Sphinx in a 2v1, he takes so much damage. Shield is gone, half HP. Pollo's doing his best to try to run from point A to point B to get there. And even though Sphinx did a good job fighting back, he dropped down Polo to one hit. It's just a very, very risky situation. Everybody was in for now. Pollo's trying to finish the job. 123, a huge shot trying to alleviate the pressure for his teammate and continuously stealing away those pieces from his opponents.
His movement's been so nice here. You'd love to see him rewarded with an elim, and it looks like he'll come. Shonye dropped. And just now, Polo to add to that list.
Even though it looks crazy that he dropped the blue mammoth for the green one, you can see it's just out of ammo. Getting ready there to get pushed in that quick moment. Wish he would have kept the green one because at least he was able to fire back, but now he's in a tougher position than he was in just moments ago. Even though they picked up that elimination early on in this game, that's just not enough for them to survive. Pollo and Sphinx still making their way into the box, and you see on the bottom left of your mini-map, third party now even throwing some shots into that direction as well. It's one of those fights that it's just hard to see either one of these teams coming out on top, regardless that Pollo did able to get away. Sphinx was able to take down Polo. But there's just so much resources, heals, materials, everything was expended just for that.
Pamstu, in fact, another game positioned up on this side of the hill where, well, on the cliff, almost, I should say, where they have a really nice range of view. And they're just going to wait for some of those teams there. You can see Macquin and Blake need to start rotating in. I'll wait for them to try walk past their line of sight.
Second place here, Edgy and Duke. They haven't had to move too far from their original drop spot of Rumble Ruins. So they're just taking advantage of the zone, continuously pulling in their direction. They see Rift Island into the distance. They could try to make a play for this realistically, or they could just sit here and put tags on teams going for Rift Island as well. They definitely have every choice in the book, and it's theirs to make. See the pre-rifts going down. Osid and Aminish. Baka and Pars being the first two teams trying to make a play. Osid taking some damage. Baka as well. As soon as they land, they box up and get ready for the inevitable because they had to have spotted that team out in the distance as well.
I'm also surprised that Bucky and Okus ain't here. Of course, you know how heavily you like to play to it.
I feel like they're trying to condition the lobby as well, that they're going to be one of the teams, and it's going to be a risky fight if you can test for it. I thought I saw Okus go down in the feed, so they're probably having some troubles that prevent them from consistently going to the top of Rift Island, but they've garnered some early points in the first two games, so it's not going to be too much of a worry if they can try to survive. But man, that is going to be a tough challenge for them going up against Acorn and Cold. Or surprisingly, getting back to their championship form after a misstep on that last finals. And it does look they want to finish this fight. They don't want to let Bucky go for free. They know he's a solo, and you see them just chasing, changing layers. I think they heard him disengage towards the low ground, and that might have been the shot to save Bucky's life. The Mammoth coming in, tagging down Cold, but no, Acorn doesn't want to give up just yet.
Yeah, he's like, Cold, you can sit there and heal. I'm going to keep running in. And that might be a mistake for them because you see a couple of shots traded, and so Acorn now choosing to slow things down.
How do you feel about the Breacher? Would you grab it if you were them? Are you a Breacher kind of guy?
I'm not a Breacher kind of guy, but I think it's really good. So I definitely would pick it up in their situation, I think.
I agree. I'm a breacher kind of guy, but I break through the wall, don't grab the piece, and regret it later on when I go down and I'm watching my teammates try to save the day. Vivid particularly, along with Mini Miner. Zeus is gone. They're looking for him. They don't know exactly where he's at. And since they went the other direction firing shots, Zeus is probably going to try down. And in theory, his teammate could go for this revive if they still don't figure out where he's at.
I think he might just be able to get off as well. Ooh, no. Finish comes through.
Depending on if they have med kits, bandages, or anything to get the HP back, they could possibly get that reboot. Damage from the zone isn't doing too much at this stage in the game. Bucky by himself, boxed up on the slurp plant, and going to go ahead and throw it over to Taco so she can let us know how Bucky has been faring up until this point.
Well, Bucky might have found himself in a bit of a sticky situation, but one thing that has certainly made things a little bit easier for Bucky and Okus prior to Okus getting knocked earlier in this game is just the way that they choose to utilize this jungle biome. We already saw an instance of Bucky taking advantage of the slurp plants, making sure to get that additional 25 HP on his shields. It's doing a great job, at least at keeping him alive for the time being, but being so close to Rumble Ruins, he might have an opportunity to get that reboot off onto Okus, so just got to see if he manages to pull it off.
Definitely have some time to see if Bucky can pull off what some would think is the impossible reboot and win a game. And you hear what Taco's talking about, those slurp plants. If you know exactly where they're located around the jungle biome, you're able to save every single heal that you have. And you see Bucky, even though the minis were lacking just a little bit, he was stacked with slurp flashes and bigs. If he could try to survive, that will definitely take him into the end game. As it does, like, Pump and Degen got an elimination. That's why you see all the fallen loot. Let's check out how they got that one.
Ooh! Love how we both react the same there, because that was a chunky shot from Pump. Nicely done.
Just as quick as they performed in that last game with a second place, Duke and Edgy go down here in game number 3, but it's all about consistency. It's a marathon, it's not a race in most cases. Unless you're Rise and you're just racing across the map with the mud and the sprint. Just crouch and uncrouch with a jump gives you a little bit of a speed boost, and that's how you're seeing a lot of these players just soar and cover so much distance around the map, especially with no mobility. It's a huge tool underneath your belt in order to succeed here in these lobbies. Oof. Just doesn't stop. It's almost scary thinking that somebody's game can end just like that. The top of a mountain, one well-placed shot from Agers. It doesn't even have to be him that cleans it up. If somebody else spots out a mammoth shot getting hit, just like that, Agers takes a shot while missing a couple. Drops down low. You got to imagine some extra heals are down low towards the low ground. So not too much of a worry. Still a few teams on the northeast portion of the map that need to rotate into the zone, so Canadianagers, they can choose to rotate deeper in, getting out of congestion early, or they can try to gatekeep. Acorn and Cold, 1,200 above the damage threshold. They too are choosing to stay put, where it is likely to get congested on this side. You're seeing a lot of teams already positioned there, even more beginning to rotate in. And just because you're up on Surge doesn't mean somebody's going to try or not going to try to interact if they're low on Surge. See Yuumi and Source trying to jump on the backs of Pamstu and Fatch, take advantage while this rotation is going on. But Fatch not really looking back up until now. He tries to shield himself, and Yuumi and Source as a team. I expected more mid-objectives to be taken, but Fatch gets taken down, trying to hide in the bush, healing at the wrong moment. Almost seemed like the lights are on, but no one's home, but that's a huge advantage for Source to take him down, get all those heals, and that allows him to extend a little bit more time here in the zone on the backside of everybody else, knowing he is going to get that HP and shield back.
Yeah, Source and Yuumi have done pretty alright to get into the zone under the circumstances. I think the big thing is getting to that next zone, right? That's going to be even more challenging, traveling all the way down south with all those teams sort of rotating side by side you.
More than half the lobby has to go south.
Yeah, and Booga and Threats, they acknowledge the difficulty, and so they just want to get on the move now. They don't want to wait for all those other teams to be doing it with them. They're trying to get ahead of the pack. And that's what they'll do, especially using this mud, right? Just getting in so swiftly, and they'll even catch up to Cold along the way.
This is a big opportunity to take down a prolific team here in the lobby between the two. But Booga's just trying to reinforce his position above Acorn and Cold to make sure that he can't easily get shot down. As below on Surge, Aoxy and Swirl with a huge sneak attack, taking down their opponents just like that. And those are the moments that really change the course of your game in the blink of an eye.
That's what it's all about. Aoxy and Swirl will be hoping they can have a moment just like that one and keep adding to that total of the limbs. I'm just going to run their way on in. 105 above isn't the most comfortable spots, but at least they are securing the zone for now.
They're just not comfortable. They see the Storm Surge numbered, tossing up and down. Swirl peeks out towards the backside of the zone, tries to land a couple of cheeky shots. At least it's something when it comes to Storm Surge, but they're just nook and a cranny on the side of a hill, trying to survive in another far pool for the majority of the lobby. Only the strongest will survive.
Hamster's a strong fella, but I don't know if he survives this one. This is really tough to be in. Not working with much by way of HP. We'll get some time to get back to 100 shield at least. And the med miss actually should be able to get him up to a decent level, but the problem is, as he continues this game with these kind of materials, traveling in this kind of terrain, this zipline might be a savior for him. It allows him to just save quite a bit of materials for now. And then he has to stop and re-strategize.
Yeah, a cheeky attempt there to try to take down Larson. Doesn't work out for him, and I like the fact that he didn't get greedy. He didn't force the situation, knowing he still has more distance to cover to get into the zone and find some safety. See in the feed, Booga's gonna go down, Batman Booga. You see her as well. Pollo's gonna clean those up, but it's actually User. Pal takes down User, so now Rise is by himself. You see Aoxy and Swirl having some struggles with Pamso on his back, and Pamso knows he needs a refresh. You called out the material count itself, and that is going to be a must. Just like Rise, pops the Slurp Juice, doing his best to try to hide his position and not become the focus, still while looking for information.
Rise all alone in this game for the remainder, and it's not the spot he'd want to be in, but it's not a spot he'll cower away from. You see him spotting out some loot. There is somebody in zone near him that he didn't realize was there, and so gets caught out. He thought it was free loot, but it's never free loot in this lobby. Peterbot and Larson now will continue their pursuit in this game. Of course, they spot out that first movement zone and have a pathway sort of laid towards it. Do you want to make sure that there isn't anybody that can get into their base with ease?
First is out, second place. We saw them just fall. For Aegis and Kanata, this is your chance to overtake that first place spot or get as close as you possibly can. Everybody else here into the top 14, it's all about making up for those couple blunders early on in this game. And speak of them themselves, Kanata and Aegis have their position on the high ground. It's about holding on to it. You see them looking towards the backside of zone. No sneaky plays coming through. They see that one a mile away, and even dropping down to connect and reinforce their position.
That is the best spot they could possibly be in. Muzz and Paper trying to create space, create a lane for themselves, and Trashy is a player that fell in the way of that. But they're gonna now need to try and stay alive in this game. In the backside, so many different players there, but Muzz will handle it all. Needs a Siphon to come through, and it will just in the make of time. Muzz with a couple sticks of HP remaining, and he just has to get into the zone.
And while all this was going on, Agers and Kanata got dropped off for the high ground, stolen away by both Baka and Pars. Now Kanata's by himself. He needs some time. He needs some builds. He needs anything that he can. He's grasping at straws to try to stay alive as the high ground was taken. Macwood rotating nearby. Doesn't want to peek just yet. Trying to get as much shield and HP as possible. You see Pars going ahead, trying to reconnect, get and make sure that him and Baka are safe from anybody that tries to challenge that high ground. But Kanata forced to really think outside of the box. Not a lot of materials, and he lands a huge shot onto Chubbs. Back to back. He's doing his darndest to try to stay alive, but only 3 seconds. He can only take 3 sticks in the zone, but he goes down regardless. But a huge effort to try to climb up the leaderboard.
Heroics in the backside of the zone. Players trying to make storm plays, and that's what Revised will do. One of the very last ones left to survive, and all these slurps, he's got to do something with them. Got to put them to use. Back and pass. They're sitting comfortably though. They ain't worried about slurps in the back of the zone. They're worried about closing out the game. Revive's gonna have to run into this team here on low ground, and it just is him sitting in between them and the team up above. I believe Macwood went down, or at least he's still up in the game in the zone as well. So still some solo players with sticks in this one. And now secure their low ground, take everybody out that stands in their way.
This is going to be difficult for anybody to try to survive as Macwood is going to be one of those players doing everything that he can, but the Metmus is running low. He has to try to sneak up on Poyo with the Sphinx, who hear him coming from a mile away. He's the only solo left in the game, and a world full of duos as he gets chopped down yet again, sent back to the lobby by Sphinx and Poyo, who are now battling against the high ground. But if you look at their materials, they have everything that they need to try to contest. But Baka and Pars, they drop down low. They don't want to let it go easy. Sphinx boxes him up, but gets forced to the backside of the zone. He goes to the front as well. He's continuously on the move. He doesn't want to get spotted out. He's keeping him on his toes, but Pars finds him eventually. Sphinx by himself, 1v2 situation, but Pars and Baka, they have not only the high ground, but the numbers game, and the splashes are coming out on top. Sphinx, he's making an attempt to try to fight for the high ground. He overtakes it for a moment. His teammate does go down, so the Siphon gets fed over to Pars. So it's a 1v2 with no builds on the low ground. Sphinx trying to hold on. He makes the play. He shoots at the ground. He's doing everything he can. Both players are out of zone. Sphinx gets a knock on the one. The Siphon doesn't come through in the nick of time. Baka, with his hair on his chinny chin chin, escapes with the VR.
Oh my goodness, Sphinx. He's gonna be so upset if the Siphon came in. There would have been hope. Almost so close in the end there. But it's Baka and Pars who hold on for the win. And a good win at that as well. You saw them holding height in a position of ease. It wasn't like the previous game where there was a million different people trying to overtake them. They were able to just hold on while everybody else beneath them did the fighting. And in the end, isolated the 2v1. And like you said, it was very close. Baka had no mats. He would have just been swimming around there in the sea. And it would have been pretty easy, you think, at least for Sphinx to maybe take him out, but nevertheless, it didn't come down to that in the end.
Yeah, it was a huge effort. It started when they took down Agers to steal away the high ground, and from there, their position in the game was solidified. But it was that last shot by Baka that really made the difference, sort of a fadeaway for the points and the game. And you got to give it up to one of the few NA West teams making it here on this region.
Yeah, they're showing what they can do in their pursuit of a win today. Can they keep up these performances? Before we head into the next game, we're going to send it to Zeke and the analyst to break that one down.
After game number 3, now the halfway point here in week number 2 in NA. It comes down to a nail biter, Vivid. I'm sitting there thinking, how is this gonna? It's a 2v1. It maybe is wraps. No. Baka Pars, they have other plans. And like, if it's me in that situation, I crumble. But to see the expert play, to see how Baka uses every little build, every single right peak angle to ensure the win there. Oh man, that was so sick.
Yeah, I mean, the win pretty much comes down to Baka and Pars playing that perfectly right. The timing of when they actually dropped down from the high ground to when they wanted to take that 2v2 engagement against Polo and Sphinx pretty much won them the game, because as Jacob had mentioned, Sphinx had like 80+ builds after he picked up all the loot on the low ground, after all those engagements, after all the refreshes came through. But Polo, his teammate, had 0 materials, and because Baka and Pars decided to drop down so fast and go ahead and take advantage of the timing, Sphinx couldn't actually drop any materials over, and that left them in that 2v1 situation.
Yeah, you got to give a bit of credit to Spinks, though, of course, taking that high ground so well and just about missing out on that clutch. It was that siphon that didn't come through. He couldn't quite get it quickly enough because he would have won the game if that was up to him. If he was able to get that siphon, he definitely would have got the victory out. But I'm excited to see that. Of course, two of our West teams going up against each other, of course, now on NA Central. This is what NA Central is all about, seeing both regions go up against each other and even some of our West guys showing up as well.
Yeah, you saw he turn and he goes for the 52 on the dome, but in that moment, it's like, do you commit to the siphon, right? Do you just put yourself in the situation where you're exposed? He chose to hide on the wall. If he just turned, yeah, it might have gone a little bit differently, but still a nail biter all the way to the very end. I want to see the standings because remember, we have only 3 more games left to go here in NA, and then we wrap things up and only have next week to conclude putting series point leaderboard points down. It's a mouthful. User and Rise are now tied with Agers and Canada. Vivid, what is going on here in NA?
I mean, listen, a little bit of a switch, or a little bit of a slip up there from User and Rise, and even Acorn and Cold as well. Before that first moving zone came in, our top 2 teams were down, and it opened up the floodgates for Canada and Agers to take full advantage of that opportunity. And we even saw them on the higher ground. But as soon as we switched to them, as soon as we checked out their loadout, I saw Canada. He had 40 builds, and I was like, yeah, going throughout the rest of these zones, I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. They got contested for it, didn't have the materials to defend it.
Yeah, we saw a lot of our big teams in that endgame not quite do as well, not quite make it as far as they would have liked, and that's, of course, what opened the doors for Baka and Pars to take the game on height. So for these teams now, it's just a bit of thinking about, how can we improve ourselves for this next game going into it, because, we need to pop off here today. We need to do well. So for teams like Rise and, of course, User, they need to pop off in the next one.
Yeah, man, I can feel that pressure, right? 3 games left to go. Some duos don't have any series points. They need to have that performance today to just try and have a good week next week to ensure that grand finals spot and then try and compete for the global championship spot. Like, pressure is on right now. Now, of course, before we continue the competition here, we do have a little bit of an interview lined up. We have a member from our community. It is none other than Crip, who'll be hanging out with us. First off, I just got to ask, how's it going? How you feeling?
I'm feeling amazing. The games have been so far pretty good, and I'm very grateful to be here, especially since I've never been on this.
Hey, well, welcome. It's fantastic to have you here. So you're enjoying the action. Has there been any highlight moments for you, or just maybe like a strategy or just something that stands out that you're like, dude, this is so awesome?
Honestly, the last game with Pars and Baka, how they won the game, they didn't have much mats anyway, and they still somehow managed to win.
Yeah, great play out of Baka and Pars in game number 3 there. 3 left. Are there any duos that you've had your eye on so far, or you're hoping to pick it up for those last 3?
Honestly, Possess and Zuko have been doing pretty good out of Naughty Nets, which most people wouldn't expect them to do. And also Pars and Baka, which are some of the most underrated duos on the region right now.
Of course, now thinking further ahead to the Global Championships. Are there any duos that you have your eyes on for that? Of course, maybe we'll see NA on top in that particular LAN, or what do you think will happen?
Honestly, I have Acorn and Cold bringing it home, but if not, I think Malabuka and Thomas will do it, because Thomas has been one of the most consistent players all across the board since FNCS has been a thing, and I really hope he does win. But honestly, I want Cold to win because that used to be my old teammate, so.
That's so awesome. Well, Crip, thank you so much for stopping by. For all the fans that you've just made, where can they find you? Because they need to go follow you.
You can find me at Crip, CRYP on Twitch, or Crip_VI on Twitter.
Awesome. Crip, thank you so much. We hope you enjoy the rest of the games today.
Thank you for having me.
We hope to catch up with you later on.
Later.
Of course. Crip, a fantastic member of the community. Getting to just hear that insight, right? There's a lot of action happening in FNCS, but it's more than just this. There's a whole competitive community. So much to look into, but I know what you want. It's more games. I want more too. There's only 3 left to go, so let's keep this ball rolling. Jacob PR, 11-2K, over to you.
Thank you very much, Zeke. It's a pleasure to bring you these first 3 games. I'm looking forward to bringing you the next 3. Look, shout out to my boy Crip. That's my guy right there, and OG. I love that, brother. And I hope to see him back on top in the comp scene someday. Do you know what I'm saying? They're asking him who he thinks can win. I wish it would have been him in the position to say, yeah, I think I can win. Maybe one day soon. But Jacob, look, you excited for the next 3 games?
Oh, I'm excited for games. Let's just get him ready. But my first memory of Crip, just to kind of talk about him a little bit, I just remember him boxed up in duos, just hopping in circles. And every time he hopped, just hop, hop, hop. And for a second there, I thought the game was just calling out every single movement he made, but now it was just him getting ready for the next rotation any way that he knows how. He's definitely an entertaining person in the community.
Yeah, man, he's a NA driller, right? We've seen him in these NA FNCS streets many years ago, and always been entertaining to watch. And like he said, he played with Cold. He's been with some of the best players around. And speaking of Cold, hopefully we can start to see them getting back into the swing of things, into the action, deep into the game, and that all starts here in game number 4. Let's go.
This is the second half of the day. And for some of these teams, you got to hope you're a second half team, because the last chances are here to climb up that leaderboard. If you missed week number 1, these are some of the most important games you're going to play up until this point. And for others, this could be the chance to solidify that spot in the global championship later this year by earning it in the grand finals. There's 10 total spots up for grabs this season. So it's definitely anyone's game to try to take over and build upon their legacy, but a fight that we've been watching all day. Meefs versus Sync, Rise versus User, and already see Users right out of the gate grabbing the Mammoth, and that's already a pack a punch as Sync just going for the pickaxe. He gets dropped. It's actually a double Mammoth right out of the gate for Rise and User. User even got a drum. He's just hot on the heels. Looks like it's done and over with yet again. From start to finish, Rise and User are getting everything that they need for their game.
4 in a row. Are we going to see a 6-0 today, Jacob? What do you think? 6-0 off spawn for Rise and User? Do you think it can happen?
I think it's up to Sync and Meeks if they want to keep contesting that. I think the possibility is there. They've mastered that drop spot season after season. Even got Reese breaking down videos about how he does it. Game after game, they have the perfect drop and a perfect plan B if things don't go well. You saw it in a couple games. But the Citadel, a drop that's been contested but split between these teams throughout the day. Not too much action going on, but brutal Bastion. From public to ranked to even FNCS is probably one of the most contested drops you'll see. Is back. Even Skittles have a lot of familiarity over on this side of the map as well. And you got to imagine whoever got that first knock has the information that at least, at the very minimum, that player's weak. And it might have been of even Skittles because you see them closing in onto the distance. Goes above and over, gets tagged up just a little bit by the third party, but not too much for Aviv to try to recover. And you can see Vanillas and Convict just dropping down layer after layer. This isn't a fight they want to take on this early in the game. Well, I was going to say, like, Blake really needs this. He's doing a good job. He gets that first knock, but if you're not able to separate your opponents quick enough to separate them into 2 1v1s and get the siphon, it's just one of the hardest things you could do in a finals lobby just like this. You see he was able to get the first knock, but that drum at a close range is going to be his demise.
Yeah, and it's good to see 20, that fight going in their way. It's felt mostly like it's been in Macwood and Blake's favor. And you get to play out some of the other games, but not so much success. So hopefully this could be a shift in momentum in the back end of today's games.
Ron Aoxy making an adjustment from previous games, and you even see threats stretched over all the way to this side of the map. Typically them, Bolts and Thoric have been battling it out at the top of that hill. So changing things up here in the second half. You see Static and Playify doing what they do best. They're just trying to third party this lonely Labs fight. They weren't quick enough to actually be that third party, so it is going to be a fresh 2v2 going down between 20 and Pledge over on the other side. A lot of this real estate is going to be owned by 20 and Pledge, so they have the freedom to move in and out of the build, which is forcing Static and Playify to play separately, and it's not looking good. Playify goes down. Static trying to make a cheeky play with that Mammoth. They end up in the box. Static almost gets the one shot, but he is 9 HP trying to survive every single build, getting expended until Pledge and 20 finally take him down. And that's back-to-back fights won, 4 eliminations. So when it comes to Surge, they got to be sitting right.
Yeah, that's really nice from them. Again, a very big change to what we've seen in some of the previous games. Poyo stealing the show for the moment because that's a really nice pair of shots he just hit. Can he finish this out and actually win it for him and Sphinx?
Just a second here. Pop the big pop. We keep talking about how important it is to be full HP, not be stingy with your heals, but the longer this one goes, you see Reet and Ritual ready to third party, and that's something they've been doing throughout the day. Poyo cleans it up as quick as he can, but see they're on the hunt. Predators in this jungle, hoping that Poyo and Sphinx are as easy prey as they think it is, but it doesn't look like Ritual's there, ready to strike. Reach just kind of hunkered down, waiting for an opportunity. If he hits it, that's when I see them using that as a green light to go. That was an opportunity there. If you guys are wondering, Reach crouch down, doing the aim down sights to try to minimize as much audio that he's given up to both Poyo and Sphinx, but judging by that view there, it does look like they at least spotted him out. You see Sphinx dropping down low to try to disengage. They don't want to take 2 back-to-back fights this early in the game. The double pump with the Mammoth. That was a huge shot by Poyo to stay alive. The hip fire with the Mammoth is just as dangerous as like aiming down sights 200 meters away. Yeah.
That was my first question because when it dropped, I initially saw people like, posting the clips of, oh my goodness, look at this pistol. And I was like, I wonder what the hip fire is like on this, right? Like, because if the hip fire is good as well, then it's just like so multifaceted as a weapon, right? You can just use it in so many different scenarios. It's not limited.
I think that's why you are seeing a lot of teams. You see Miro and Cooper here on screen choosing to opt out of an SMG or even a third heal to make sure that they do have that Mammoth in their back pocket. This is one of the teams. They switched up their drop spot from North Slappy Shores over towards the north side of the map altogether. They're trying to really condition the rest of the lobby of preparation of where they're going to land in the future, especially for that global championship. They already have their spot. Ruga and Threads just land a monster of a shot onto AOC. Swirl falls right after. And that's something we saw in the distance. Threads was there almost from the beginning of that drop. Just getting all the information, feeding it on over to Booga as they formulated the plan of action. Victor V and B-Dog at the top of the mountain. Trying to gatekeep any team from rotating around. They got a good position inside of the zone as well. Sphinx not having to travel far for their weapons cache. You see Rise and User trying to do the same thing as well, and you see them trying to save the mud. They instantly build, they go over the water. They want to keep their quick rotation intact.
The question is, will they be able to? Of course, User and Rise get into this cache first. It seems like that's the case all the time, right? Every time we watch them at this part of the game, they seem to be the ones getting to the cache on time.
And they're one of those teams to where they take note of every single cache that spawns around their landing spot because it only spawns between you and one other team. So as long as they have every single potential spot intact, they kind of know what direction to rotate into. They know how to keep their distance very, very minimal so that it's not a large amount of meters to cover. They're one of the few teams that just has it down packed. Dispatch and PAMSO. We talked about the importance of this week for them. They missed out on week 1, so they need a top placement here to make week 3 that much easier. We've already seen teams get bounced out of FNCS so far, and they don't want to be added to that list.
After winning that game, right? To not see them make it deep into this game would be painful, and in the pursuit of their cash, they've been bullied off of it.
I don't even think to start the day they were contested. This is something that's changed up as time has went on. So you see here in Dorito is actually one of those teams that landed towards Brutal Bastion, slowly but surely rotated towards the north side of the map. I gotta imagine this might help Baka and Pars just a little bit if they're able to survive, because now they have somebody to get the early game surge. You see the zone pulling in this direction as well. So now they have the chance to focus a little bit more on rotations than they have been able to in previous games.
Well, that's the thing with this team here, right, in just in Canada, where like I look at them and I look at all the other top teams you've had the day so far, and I'm like, I'm waiting for these guys to show up and give us that win, right? We've had good performances from them, I'm not saying that, but I want to see them get that staple win on the day. Only Joe to place top 10 in every game today, right? Like, they've been here, they've been close.
They've slowly but surely moved up the leaderboard thanks to that consistency. To start this game, they were tied first place, but losing the tiebreaker due to Rise and User having at least one victory on the day. But Crip mentioned this team, so we're going to go ahead and throw it over to Taco to break down what Crip was talking about.
Well, if we're going to be talking about top of the leaderboard teams, Zuko and Possess, they're currently in 4th place, and they've actually got a pretty unique strategy of their own as far as rotations are concerned at their initial drop spot of Naughty Nets. They're already basically playing from an edge drop position, but since the zone didn't pull in their favor, they actually choose to rotate towards a geyser, even dropping a push to prioritize not being able to get shot out in the process of making this geyser rotation, but even using the natural water to continue to just rotate as far alongside the edge as possible. And we've been seeing them make it pretty late into those moving zones, a lot of it having to do with their dead side rotations.
Taking a page out of the Booga and Threats playbook, the least congested path of Rift Island is going to spawn. You see Bucky and Okus third-partying this in the distance. Aviv is going to be the first one towards the top of Rift Island. Another team on the other side, but Skittles being left by himself. One of those situations to where you just have to be able to survive while your teammate is doing what he can to take the top of Rift Island, but finally they reunite. Aviv got the memo. He was by himself, and you don't want to travel by yourself in a lobby just like this, and since they had to leave Rift Island to make this a possibility, they don't want to return to try to fight this one out.
Yeah, they want to try close. Ooh, let's see if they can hit some shots here. One of the guys gliding in, Aviv. I'm going to be awaited by Bucky and Okus up there, yeah. Back to standard island procedure then here in NA with Bucky and Okus up there. Who else would it be?
Honestly, I don't think anybody can convincingly, time after time, game after game, goes for Rift Island as much as Bucky does. He's willing to risk it all, put his money where his mouth is in terms of fighting. You see him elevated high up on that house above Rift Island while Okus captures that point. It allows him to keep eyes on every single player and continue to deal damage with that Mammoth. But it does look like the heavy ammo is becoming scarce for Bucky as Tony ends up in a fight across the map. He gets dropped. Now it's up to his teammate Cat to try to survive. He's trying to claw his way into the box. That's Nick on the other side who denies him entry. Luckily for Cat that he does have slap, splashes, and slurp juice to try to out-heal the zone since he's going back into it. Ooh. Well, first of the heal is going to be used very, very early on. Flo and Nick know they've dealt so much damage, so it's their choice if they want to go on the chase for it or try to gatekeep him for later.
What would you do?
I'd gatekeep him for later. I'm a safe kind of guy. especially with other players having mammoths in this lobby.
You're one of them guys that like camps cards in Storm for 5 minutes, aren't you?
I mean, I saw Acorn and Cole do it, and that's where I got the idea for it. Bolt and Thoric. They're not camping cards. In fact, they're doing the opposite. They're trying to get into the box. Thoric just a little bit too far ahead. He has to be careful. Mud Hut Boy on the other side has a little bit of elevation, threatening Thoric's safety as Bolt's there to kind of alleviate the pressure. All sides being tagged up on right now, and you can see Vanilla and Convict there as well. And they're not even in the zone. They have to climb up the side of this mountain if they want to get towards the zone where Brutal Bastion is at. And surprisingly enough, not a lot of teams are already positioned there as Vanilla wants to finish the fight that was already started. But once again, the agility from Mud Hut Boy is able to get him up and out of there just as quick. And you even see the porta potty being used to try to rotate to safety. Trying to get with his teammate yet again. That's Convict on the other side. Even though it is a solo there, they don't want to be one of the last teams to try to rotate in. Bolts and Thoric the same. And since Zone continuously pushing people in this direction, they're trying to go north to where they hope the least contested side of the map is going to be at.
Don't know how much luck they'll get with that though, right?
It's going to be hard. Business as usual with this loadout. User now has 28 individual elims in weekly finals this season, which is the most in NA. Doesn't surprise me too much. I remember watching him in Chapter 3 thinking he has so much potential. I remember watching him years before that, rising up the ranks in solos, really putting respect on his name. If you want a wholesome story of somebody doing everything himself to try to build up his accolades, to earn some respect in the Fortnite community, I think User is going to be one of those guys.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. Cold, I think, has been the de facto best player in the region this year, but the only person that's able to rival him individually from a talent perspective is User. I've been saying that myself now for the past 2 years, not just this year. I felt that way about him last year, still feel the same. Has some things he needs to iron out of his game, right? He has that classic case of fragger brain I think we see in a lot of young, talented players, but when he isn't in that mode, when he's fully focused and has a clear mind, I don't think there's many players better than User, not just in NA, just in the world in general. I think he'd slot into any top EU team with the talent he has.
Wow, this is going to be tough. I was about to agree with you there, 110%, but the Aegis is already low on HP. Kanata has no heals to his name. Even though they're well above that Storm Surge threshold, they're going to have to think of something, but if you know exactly where those slurp plants are at, I can imagine they're likely headed in that direction to try to regain as much shield and HP as possible, but it's not going to be the easiest to try to achieve. But just like that, they make it look easy yet again.
Pumping Degen. I'm just waiting for them to see someone gliding through the sky and just hit that shot, you know? That's all I've been waiting for.
I feel like that's all anybody in this lobby's waiting for. Somebody to make the misstep of trying to rift in towards the zone. Even a launch pad for Brutal Bastion would be disastrous. The zone is going to pull. You can kind of see where everybody in the lobby is positioned at. What rotations they are going to have to make. Some far, some not so much. And for Ryzen users, they're the team that's kind of in the middle. A quick rotation. They're going to backtrack quickly for Mud. That way they don't have to waste any time. And that way, if they want to travel to a slower side of the zone, they can do so quickly. Where Rise detoured off into, but he gets caught out.
And the problem is now this is 2 back-to-back games for this duo where one of them is playing out the game as a solo. right? First 2 games, clinical together, on point. Past 2 games, making it to end games, but only as solos, unfortunately. So we'll see what Iomzo can do. I mean, User instead of Rise.
I think we've been talking him up enough to where I'm not even worried. You said that. I'm not even worried. I feel like if anybody could pull off a massive solo clutch and pick up points, it is going to be him. As Storm Surge being active in this lobby at this time, Mero barely going above, and he's trying to climb even higher with a nice mammoth shot. Drops down low, and might not be the position he wants to fall into. That's Kanata and Agers, the hungry duo, towards the bottom. He just quickly gains some elevation. Him and Cooper don't want to be stuck with any other team that is down low, especially back behind the zone as Acorn now becoming the focus of the lobby. People know he's there. First Slurp Juice trying to be popped, but it goes down. Acorn and Cold are out of this game. You said it yourself, our top teams are beginning to slip up, which opens up that window of opportunity.
Yeah, and when that door opens, you got to jump through quick because it doesn't often stay open for long. Pars and Baka now very much have a path to zone. A lot of these builds to the left will cover them up from that team, and sliding across this ice may cause them some issues as they are well in the open. And now you're seeing Pars just opting to use some wood to protect himself. Maybe a bit too greedy, and again a bit too greedy. You gotta be aware of the rest of the lobby looking at you on that side. And now his last big pot's gonna have to be popped here. Fortunately, a shieldfish will come through from his teammate. But again, the problem with getting too greedy, Jacob.
That's what's happening in a lot of lobbies. You start to feel like you're on fire. Momentum's built on your side, but then you forget the simple ABCs of covering yourself, being aware of anybody else. As Bryce and Chubbs just fall below that damage threshold. Information, figure out where they're going to get this damage from. Otherwise, they're going to be forced to try to W key their way into a box, and that's not something you want to do, especially this late in the game where so many players can just easily turn and make you a focus whether you win or lose the fight.
Bryce and Chubbs, they're now making their pursuit towards the zone. And they found someone along the way that they feel like they can take out. When that player gets out of the way, they'd refocus their attention to just securing a spot in zone. You can see just creating a brick tunnel here to make it 2. Blocking off the angle from that team above. But they're not happy about that though. Pressure now. Give him a piece of their mind, sorry. Bucky and Okus are posturing for height, and it makes sense in a lobby where a lot of their best height competition is already fallen. Why not go for it?
Yeah, we talked about User being by himself. Second place, Kanata and Agers just fell. Sandwich between Bucky and Okus and Poyo and Sphinx, and you see them looting up. A huge amount of loot to be garnered as well, but now the zone's gonna pull for them. They at least have the comfortability not having to worry about Storm Surge on this rotation. Booga by himself, he has a little bit of worries, but he has all the expertise in the world, and he's faced every single situation before, and that's why you see him quickly moving from point A to point B, not really wanting to waste any time. And then added on top of that, he doesn't necessarily drop down to the lowest layer at all.
I feel like every FNCS at one point we do get a big solo performance from Booga. I mean, when you think of Booga, you do think of him as a solo oftentimes, and his ability there historically. User in a very similar spot to Booga where he has to do this all alone, but he definitely has the kit for it. The only problem is materials, and that's why he's actively seeking out a refresh here in the back of the zone, looking for any other solos just like him. But when they won't appear, it will be up to now trying to delay and find some sort of a timing. You saw a player running across the top of his builds, and so he'll now take some shots at that player and see if he can catch them out. And that might just be the opportunity for him. Needs to pursue that and finish that one off.
Yeah, the only team right now on the leaderboard that can try to rival them is going to be Baka and Pars, but as long as he continues to pick up eliminations, pick up these placement points, and skate by, it's going to be hard for that gap to be closed. As he's making it look easy, high ground's being held and reinforced by Bucky and Okus, but Poyo and Sphinx, they're going for it. They get stuck for a quick short second, but that doesn't stop them. It does look like they're gonna try to fight for that high ground, but User goes down. First and second place are out. Baka and Pars now have a chance to take the top of the leaderboard, but they have to go through this. They have to go through Poyo and Sphinx, who have the high ground, and they have it reinforced.
Pollo has been on a tear already in this game, and he's looking to add so much more to his tally. 6, all by his lonesome. And Sphinx will also be on the search, but this pullback zone will delay that process just a bit for them. All these teams going to be going back through their old builds. But that's fine for Parza and Baka. They've got an established tarp, and they've got space to try and capitalize on people, space to claim. 20 very much now trying to catch people out in the back of the zone, and he almost does. Gets one, but 4 getting taken out.
The damage he dealt to Bucky and Okus could be felt. They go back to the lobby as well. Baka and Pars, I talked about their chance to move up the leaderboard. How about the chance to go back-to-back in our weekly finals lobby? This is a big momentous effort being held right now by Pars as he gets backed out of the box. That's Bolt and Thoric. FNCS champions on the other side who waste no time finishing what they started in terms of damage. Baka's in their sights. The last solo left, but High Ground is putting that pressure. The last duo left alive, and now it's going down to a 2v2.
Thoric, Bolts have everything it takes up against Pollo and Sphinx. 2 teams full of young talents who have shown on many occasions just how good they are. But there's no better time than now for one of them to alpha the other and take the game. Sphinx and Pollo have been clear and calm from above, and now dropping down to pursue the fight. Some shots on both sides, but it will be Sphinx and Pollo to clean things up and win the game. A nice attempt from the others, but nobody was there to match them.
As soon as Pollo and Sphinx went for that high ground, it was over for the rest of the lobby. They took down their opponents first, and everything else was just easy thanks to their refresh, the siphon. But this is kind of what started it all, taking down Kanata and Agers. And this final fight with Bolts and Thoric, weak as can be, no shield to their name. It was like taking candy from a baby.
On both those highlights there, we saw Pollo making use of the Mammoth in close range fights. Everybody's showing you the highlights of them getting long range shots with it, but he's using it to fight in box and he's not missing with it at all. And it was the key to him picking up those limbs at the end there. A very nice game from that duo. And we're gonna send it back to Zeke and the LS to break it all down.
Thank you guys so much. That was game number 4. 2 more before we say goodbye here on NA. And Pollo and Sphinx. And it was looking like maybe Pars could get the back-to-back, but Pollo and Sphinx say high ground. We want to play for that now. 8 eliminations onto the duo. And to go up against someone like Thoric and Bolts, Vivid, who we've seen get victory royales, come out in first places. Like, this was a really good final 2v2.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the 2v2. What about the 2v2v2, right?
Yeah.
The top 3, because Baka and Pors, like you mentioned, won that previous game. But in order to do it, they had to take down Pollo and Sphinx. And if we remember from that game, Sphinx almost clutched that one up. And I think Pollo was a little mad about that one this game, right? They wanted to go ahead and take control of this one. And I mean, picking up 6 eliminations going into this endgame and then finishing off with 8 on his lonesome. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, I think these guys have struggled a little bit at the beginning of the day to sort of figure out those strategies. You know, those storm surge plays that they've been making haven't quite been working out, but these last 2 games, it's all come together for them. They're back on top, back where they belong, and showing us how good of a duo they really are. We saw it from Sphinx right there, hitting max damage, combining it with the Mammoth pistol to pick up a refresh. Absolutely perfect stuff from them, and the way they took height was absolutely exceptional.
Yeah, and this is kind of something we've talked about in the past. And sometimes we tap into this is like some duos, they don't necessarily start strong, but they ramp up. And for these guys to ramp up so quickly and start to put things together with 2 games left to go, they're on it, right? They are firing on all cylinders. So I'm excited to see what they can do to the standings in the next 2 games. But of course, standings time. Let's see how things are going. We very well may see that #1 spot finally get overtaken, and it is Baka and Pars. But gentlemen, take a look at how close this is. A single point separating 2nd and 3rd, and there is a tie in 2nd and 3rd. Pollo and Sphinx coming out. That victory royale was absolutely massive for the duo.
Whew, the leaderboard is actually crazy right now. And like we mentioned, I mean, Baka and Pars had to get in the 3rd place right now to make sure that they went ahead and overtook the rest of the lobby. We're talking about Pollo and Sphinx firing on all cylinders all of a sudden. Well, Baka and Pars, these last 2 games have been actually incredible. I mean, they got a 5th place to start the day off, but His last 2 games, first and third place. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's great to see. I mean, we talk about this duo as their fragging ability, but today they've been a little bit more passive. They've been a little bit more quiet on those eliminations when compared to Poyo and Sphinx. So only 11 for them on the day, but it's just so consistent from them. They've been making those endgame and those mid-game rotations to perfection, and they just haven't needed those refreshes. They've just been so efficient with how they've played. I really, really like to watch this duo, and I really want to see if they can continue this, because first place for them is going to be huge.
Yeah, that's right. We could have that momentum, but we have to keep it going, right? The moment if we make a mistake, we get eliminated way too early, we're gonna let someone else behind us step over us, take that #1 spot. So we've got the momentum. Now we need that consistency. Let's go on back over to the standings. A couple more duos we want to highlight here before we jump into game number 5 on the day. Remember, we have a new players coming up, taking over those top spots. Take a look at someone like Aegis and Kanata, though, right? User and Rise. These guys are starting to get pushed down a little bit. Even looking at 6th place, right? Acorn and Cold. But I want to point attention, 8th place. Thoric and Bolts. That final fight there. Up 14 places. Vivid, we only have 2 more games to go. And you just need a strong game. And suddenly you're finding yourself in the top 10. If Thoric and Bolts could do this, anyone in the top 10 could suddenly overtake that #1 spot if those top 3 aren't careful.
Yeah, there is a lot of pop-off potential for sure. I mean, we saw Bucky and Okus on the high ground to win that game as well, and we know they are racking up the Rift Island objective points as well. So I'm sure they're very, very close behind that top 10.
Yeah, they are. I mean, we saw Bucky and Okus. They actually had high ground really, really early on because they just thought, hang on a sec, we have the first moving zone. Let's just crank all the way up. And I think they expended a lot of those materials when going for that Rift Island, so they couldn't quite hold on to it. So I like the plays from this team, though. They're really, really aggressive, and I don't even know how they're getting the Rift Island every single game. We have to study it because it is pretty incredible.
Maybe it's Kanata pointed out, right? There's duos in that middle part. Yeah. They're kind of camping down those rifters. Coming up saying, island spawning, let's rift on up in the sky. We're going to attack it first, right? So many little things. Again, those little tech things could result in big wins. As we come back to the standings, I do want to kind of flip on over there and take a look at the top 20. We know what that top 10 looks like, but now I want to dive a little bit deeper. I want to see what that 11th through 20th is. 113 points there for Bucky and Okus, as Vivid just brought up. I'm thinking, Vivid, you're better at math than I am. I feel like even someone like Casker and Revise there in our 13th place, they could look to end maybe top 5, maybe first place if they have 2 really, really good games. Those top 3 maybe don't have such great games.
Oh, easy. I mean, 5th place right now is 138 points. So really anybody right here in the top 20 has a chance in these last 2 games to just take over, absolutely. And I mean, we have to highlight the fact that a lot of our top teams that we've been talking about throughout the day, like you mentioned a little bit earlier on, Zeke, are slipping up. I mean, Kanata and Aegis right there, I saw them during that mid-game. They had no extra heals. They were pretty much saved by the fact that those slurp plants were around in that environment. And then also User and Rise getting called off on a mid-game rotation as well. So, you know, you got to take advantage of those moments.
And you know what it is? It's the Mammoth Pistol. So many of our teams, almost every single one of our teams is using that Mammoth Pistol, so the teams are adapting to it. Everyone's taking it, everyone's doing so much damage, and that's why we see Kanata and Aegis. No builds, no heals, because they're just having to expend so many on the rotations that they don't have any come to endgame, so they need to focus on those refreshes going into maybe that 8th, 9th second.
Absolutely, guys. 2 games left to go here. We cannot make mistakes. We need to stay on course, focus on consistency, high placement, handful eliminations, and we could shake up those standings. It is that time, though. Game number 5 is upon us. So let's get ready to jump back in with our casters.
I cannot believe that the leaderboard is this close with only 2 games left. It's really anyone's for the taking, but that's the name of the game. We've saw some competitors really rise to the top early on in our first 3 games. Since then, it's been a whole new set of names.
Yeah, and I think that's what I like to see coming into the last couple of games, right? That's what you want. You want it to be close. Not for the players, of course. They would love it to be more clear-cut. Obviously, all of them wanting to be higher up. But for us, right, keeping track of that and making sure we see who it is that ends the day with the most serious points, because that's ultimately what these guys are all playing for heading into the 3rd and final qualifier next week. And then, of course, the grand finals after that.
Yeah, and honestly, with 4 games played already, you add in last week, you shouldn't really be caught off by too many surprises. I think the Mammoth is one of those things that players still don't have ingrained in their brain just yet. They're trying to be cheap on rotates. They're trying to kind of recycle a lot of mats in these games, and it's really costing them a lot due to that Mammoth. Will they change up? Will they adapt? We'll find out now, because Game 5 is ready.
Let's see who's going to wrap up the day in just the way we expect top teams to. Last couple games have to be make it or break it as you look to wrap up the day. And of course, this is something we've been following throughout. And in these first 4 games, it was Yomzo and Rise, or I should say User and Rise, winning this fight pretty easily. And here in game number 5, they do it again. User and Rise, 5-0 off sport.
I feel like it's just looking easier and easier, but that's exactly what happens when you have your drop spot that locked down. Very few players can contest you as Peterbot and Larson once again going at it against Quanti and Chimp. Quanti's going to be the first one going down, but it is going to be a trade. Chimp actually gets the siphon as well, so a lot of mats going on over to him to be able to use. Even third party coming in, tagging up Peterbot just a little bit. You can see him go into the building. He's trying to cover himself from that third party, heal up as much as possible. He knows whether this revive is going to go off or not, so he has all the time in the world to cement himself in this position.
What do we have here? Peterbot needs to finish the business against Chimp, but Chimp will be waiting with shotgun in hand. And now a little spray battle that Chimp will come out on top of, so very favorable. And he's just going to continue the aggression. Why stop now? I've already done all this damage. Not able to pick his teammate up in time, unfortunately.
Love where his head was at. I love the idea behind it. Knowing that Peterbot has to back up just a little bit, trying to take that time as they continue to play a game of peekaboo between each other. This battle means so much because it means the possibility of getting your teammate back into the game and having a chance at even more series points as Chimp drops back down low to the low ground, battling Peterbot for this piece control. I would imagine due to the siphon, Chimp has to have some sort of a lead when it comes to materials. A lot of it is being expended, though, to try to get these pieces, and that's where Chimp says, I have had enough. I've wasted too much time here on this one exchange. I'm going to try to disengage and get my teammate back, but that same decision is going to cost him all his shield. But a game of tag between Peterbot and Chimp.
Yeah, Peterbot said, yeah, this ain't over, brother. We are going to fight, whether you like it or not.
Both of them had enough. They're going to disengage, and with action going down around the map. Nero and Cooper, who already have their spot secured in that global championship, going against Baka and Pars, and the shots and the just massive amount of damage coming out from Baka. He's only able to clean up one of those eliminations, but definitely gets a lot of surge for his effort.
And you say going up against them, I wouldn't really say that. They barely saw him. They didn't know where he was getting shot from. A bird in the sky flying through is taking you out. They were focused on the planes in front of them. But like we've seen all throughout today, Jacob, it's like these players coming in from all different angles and sides. You know, you sort of almost never know where it's coming from. Just have to sort of be aware and be ready to react.
Yeah, reaction and how quick you react is really telling. If you take another look at the leaderboard, 1 point difference, even with eliminations in the early game. And then another point from third, where you see Hoyo and Sphinx just trying to rotate. Farm up, get as much resources as possible. Using the mud to try to rotate. Interesting to see a lot of our teams split up on these drops. Feeling so comfortable. See the replay. Revised. Wow, that was a haymaker. Who needs 12 rounds when you can knock him out in 5?
You've been practicing that one in the mirror or what? That was clean for me, man.
Cop. Got a full-length mirror, about 5 feet tall.
Oh, man. Those are some really nice shots. And we've seen a lot of heavy-hitting shots today. I feel like that's been a big theme, not just with the Mammoth, with like people shotguns as well. Player fight and Static hitting a couple there.
Easy. Third-party opportunity. Booga and Thresh are just feeling more and more comfortable as each game goes on. OMG, Me Too, and Pow. You gotta imagine. Both Booga and Threats, OMG, Me Too, and Pow. Sure that they get the surge, they get the elimination. They just target this team because it feels like there's nothing they can do about it. But the players we talked about and heard from Crypt himself, Possessed, and Zuko on the other side, also becoming an annoying third party, like a fly at a picnic, trying to shoo them away, but they won't go away.
Ages in Canada. Both players have been very impressive today. Canada in particular, though, has 10 eliminations so far on the day. Up there with the likes of Yuza and Poyo. In that regard, Dorito's up there as well, right? So, and Cold. The top 5 actually is Poyo, Dorito, Canada, Cold, and Yuza. I wouldn't say many surprises there, right? A lot of them are the ones you'd expect to see in an elimination leaderboard all the way at the top.
Actually, be more surprised to not see him there.
Yeah.
Than to see them there. Especially since the Mammoth came in the game, it's easier to deal a good amount of starting damage and you can close the fight rather quickly. And you can see game after game, very, very similar rotations. The pathing, they have it down packed. They're conditioning a lot of the teams that do dare land around them to even not touch their loot. As everybody south of Mega City now has to rotate towards the north. And the longer you take to rotate there, the harder it's going to be, the more congested and more players you are going to run into. So timing is of the essence in a lot of scenarios. Not only dragged out, but extended from Lonely Labs. Where Static and Playify actually drop at. Usually you see that third that goes on over towards Lone. And how the turntables. Instead of fighting it, you see they're just trying to disengage. They know the zone is already pulling towards the north. They're just trying to beat everybody there. Position themselves with a little bit of height. Try to have smooth sailing for the mid into the late game.
Zuko and Possessed have been probably one of my surprise teams of the day in terms of just performing above and beyond, I think, what many would have expected coming in.
Definitely. I actually want to see more of this team as this game does go on. See how they're rotating, playing around, how they're able to stay alive, keeping themselves within contention, currently in 5th place. They do have a little bit of a gap to kind of close between 5th and 4th place, which is Kanata and Agers, and then everybody else at the top of that leaderboard. But if they can make this game count, and then you combine the fact with maybe our top competitors go down early like they have in the past, we could see a new team rise to the top of leaderboards and possibly take first.
Yeah. Like the analysts are saying, it's close up there, you know? No guarantees, especially if you can't get the business done in these last 2.
Especially with Baka already down. March by himself. Looks like he's just trying to get that reboot card. Disengage. They know what's truly at stake here. They have first place by 1 point with 2 games left. So many heavy fights going down already right out of the gates, and now they're going up against the Breacher. Luckily enough, Acorn has one as well. So fighting for this piece control is going to be important as Kanata and Agers actually push them back to take away that cash loot, but Kanata has to be careful. He has 1 bullet left in his shotgun. I would say at least he has the Mammoth in this scenario, but it's still not a feeling of comfortability as Agers finally shares on over some ammo. They get the piece control, forcing Acorn back yet again. This is one of those fights with the Breachers that can be so tricky, especially with a third party coming in. Kanata gets tagged up a little bit, but he gets the trade. Knock onto Acorn, which also gets cleaned up by Pate.
Let's take a look at that Elim again from Kanata. You see they're using that Breacher just to be so aggressive. And the good thing about the Breacher, obviously, it is a heavy shotgun, and we know the range that those things do possess.
That's why you see them kind of combining the Breacher with the Mammoth. No AR on Kanata. No Flapjack, no MK. So you can definitely see where they're leaning their game plan into. It's gotten them this far. No need to change it.
And that's
They're
interesting.
definitely setting themselves.
Well, it's interesting just because, like, a player like Kanata, you know, you sometimes expect him to be really getting in people's faces, right? Jumping in box and hitting those kind of shots. And you often want to have a spray weapon in those kind of situations, right? He feels comfortable just rocking the Breacher and the Mammoth. And I mean, look, we saw players making hip-fire plays with it. So
I like this stat. As an NA West guy myself, majority of the competitors in that endgame were from NA West. Pars being one of them. We saw him at least get Baka's reboot card. You can see him spotting off in the distance. Where is a safe place to try to get my teammate back? The original landing spot, not it. 20 and Pledge have rotated from Lonely Labs all the way over there. So he's going to have to continue on looking where he's going to find it. But our top 3 is so close up until this point. Taco, let us know how some of these teams are doing.
Of course, Jacob, you have to remember the difference between first, second, and third is quite literally a singular point. And for Rise and User, you would think they've been uncontested all day because they are currently 5-0 at their draw spot, making sure to secure those extra 3 objective points from the vault and all of that precious loot, which has definitely helped them elevate themselves top of leaderboards. But also, Foyo Sphinx managed to secure a nice cache for themselves, and it's a lot of chaos. So finding this cache is going to be some very essential loot. But as for Pars, whether or not he's going to be able to reboot Baka, that's the question that remains here, because that first place spot is currently being threatened when the race is this tight.
That's just one of the natures of Fortnite. Top position on the leaderboard. We talked about the first half was a different set of names. This one, a whole separate set. And now Pars has a lot of pressure, to say the least, on his shoulders. Peterbot and Larson getting that Rift Island. 50 more points for their efforts. Tagging up a couple players, and both the Boogas, one of them being Batman in an exchange at the bottom. Rapid and Threats, their respective teammates doing what they can to alleviate some of that pressure. Peterbot and Larson have the comfortability and a little bit of elevation there to continue to farm up. They're separated from their opponents, so they have little to worry about compared to those that are box to box.
Pars still in pursuit of a reboot. He needs to find a window and an opening to be able to do so and get his teammate back into the game. He'll be much better off for it.
And you can see him, he's just looking. I like how he's not getting too greedy to try to go to zone. Just trying to take what he can get and move on, but the question remains how much he can handle in a lobby like this to try to get his teammate back as we continue to look at our teams that are positioned at the leaderboard. Zone continues to move up. which is a little bit of a nightmare if you're Pars in this situation, because the zone continues to move up. It makes it to where very, very little safe spots to try to reboot your teammate. And you can see him positioned next to 2 direct teams with 2 more around the outside. So definitely has his work cut out for him in this lobby. Boyo just taking down Pam from across the map. Doesn't matter what rarity of the Mammoth. It's almost like a must-have in your loadout. Otherwise, you're behind the damage output curve.
Yeah. I'd love to see, you know, comparably to EU, how much of the limbs have been from the Mammoth and how influential it is. It's definitely felt very influential, to say the least.
Definitely telling as Duke's hitting another one on rotation. Making it look easy, grabbing some mud before he continues his journey. You can see him not trying to go to the slap dab center of that zone, more so trying to ride the outskirts. That way, not too many teams are going to be there rotating in from the west, especially on the north side. As the struggles continue to pile up for Pars, not only is this solo, he's below the damage threshold with Surge. Luckily for him, though, I will say that there is a few teams positioned up nearby. If they make the risky peek, that could be an opportunity for Pars to pick up some shots.
Yeah, and if this game is going to just have to be a solo masterclass from Pars, he's going to have to be very meticulous as he moves through as a solo. But that only happens if he's able to get Surge and get this damage.
Lands at least one shot. Well above, especially with a couple of other players in the lobby being forced to interact with one another for the same thing. Possessed and Zuko do go down, flows down as well, and that's why you see such an impact on that Storm Surge leaderboard. The blessing in disguise for Pars that allows him to save a lot of the shields, because it looks like he was ready to sacrifice the shield. He has minis, he has big pots. Now that he's 200 above the threshold, it's a whole different feeling and a whole new world for Pars. Relatively slow as a solo. Oh, hey, Acorn's back. Welcome back to the game, Acorn.
Welcome back, Acorn. No shotgun for Acorn, though, and not even a Mammoth, so no heavy hitting weapon. It's all going to be about spraying for Acorn.
I want to say at least there's a lever. But compared to a Havoc, I can see why he may be opting against it. Keep his legendary combat with the right shots, he could probably deal a little bit more damage in a quicker time. Rising user. Just 1 point shy of first place. Just re-farming. They have some of the highest elevation up until this point. Just trying to make sure that materials match the situation that they're in. Only Aviv and Skittles can top them when it comes to high ground. As we continue to look and just check up on a lot of our teams. A moment ago, Pars was 200 above. Now he's 142 below. And continuously falling with no opportunities in sight, or at least no safe ones.
Yeah, nothing's going to be gifted to him. He needs to work and fight for it. And unfortunately, Duke and Edgy are just such a hard domino to tumble over. It's like fighting through a big brick wall. He's not going to be able to run through it. He's trying to build over it right now.
Literally no opportunities and a few seconds left. He goes down just at the tail end of that one. First place, he definitely kissed that one goodbye, but at least he has one more game to make up for it. No placement points being awarded so far, just single elimination. It's Bolts and Thor. Another team. Chapter 4, Season 1. They won FNCS NA West before the regions combined. They already have their ticket to the Global Championship. It's all about building upon the foundation they've laid up until this point. And their team, you always see them towards the top side of the leaderboards, qualifying for solo cups, duo cups, and FNCS finals. So the potential is definitely there. As Rise and User being the focus just a little bit from Caskers and Rise, but they hold on to their position. And the spray is going to stop, allowing them to continue on, gathering this information, peeking through the cone. What is the right rotation? We're going to figure that out there in a few moments for Rise and User.
Boyo and Sphinx, in the last couple end games, we've seen them try to be a team that dominates height, and it's worked out for them in those games. Will that trend continue here? I think they're going to try to stick to what's been working for them. But they also have to try to stick some shots onto these players and accumulate some more damage. Come on, Boyo, open up a window. Take a shot with the mammoth. I want to see it. That's how you really put yourself in a comfortable surge spot.
Definitely is high damage output and just a single shot. And that's just a body. Add on to the head as Acorn and Cold. Not too much above the damage threshold, but a team that knows how to play in every single situation, good or bad. Not too much of a worry. Even lands a shot onto Rapid trying to rotate. You can see when it comes to their Storm Surge, doesn't necessarily do too much to rise them up the ranks. As the rest of the lobby continuously getting proactive about where they're going to pick it up. First, those slap splash going down, so you know a rotation is going to be imminent for Cold and Acorn. On the other side, Caskers gets shut down. Him and Revise fall. They were looking good just a minute ago, but it goes to show 1 second is all it takes in Fortnite for your world to get tossed turned upside down.
Yeah, everything changes so quickly. Cold and Acorn, they're trying to change the fortunes of all these other teams. You see them trying to take that cone and place it into that box. And unfortunately, the other team were ready. They were expecting it. And so they reacted accordingly. Cold and Acorn, though, their journey continues in this game, and they will continue to search for a team they can capitalize on. And there is a player right there that's very low to them, only a couple boxes away.
I don't know what the West boys did in the second half, but now we have Defiable and Cyrazer taking the high ground. 9th zone, we've seen teams steal it in 10th and 11, so they have to be careful not to get flanked. They can't turn their back and lose focus at any turn. Down low, Rise and User. Seeming like it's smooth sailing, but they come to focus. That's Acorn and Cold in the distance. Trying to get a little bit of revenge for a couple of games ago. 484 above the damage threshold. That's not their worry. It's about safely rotating towards the next zone to where it is so congested, forced to recycle a lot of builds, and just like that, high ground's taken away. They go to the front side of even Skittles, and they build right on up.
Duke and Edgy towards the front side of this zone, and they want to make sure their layer is clear, so they'll look to aggress onto Boyo and Sphinx. But look how good Boyo and Sphinx are running ahead of them and claiming that space, and now it leaves Duke and Edgy in a tough spot. Peterbot and Larson, they know plenty about tough spots today. They've had to fight out of them all day long. And even though they haven't always been successful in those fights, they'll try their best here. Very much looking upwards, Peterbot. He knows which direction he wants to go in. Boyo and Sphinx, though, we saw them on the low ground a couple seconds ago. They're now having to play catch-up as they run and try and wrap around the zone back towards the front of it.
Yeah, luckily for them, they preemptively popped the Slurp Juice, knowing they were going to have to stagger themselves in the zone if they wanted a safe rotation. Still yet to make it there, but you see them going up a few layers before that is going to be a possibility. High ground still being held by Aviv and Skittles. Contested for a short moment before they immediately drop back down. Rise users, they're trying to gain this piece control. They have another team towards the low ground. They're trying to make it a focus. They're trying to stay ahead of them as well. Block off their path. Give them no way to go but out.
Yeah, and they are so good at just pinching teams in and making them feel uncomfortable in these end games. But now it's about finding a clear layer, finding some space, because you don't want to be caught running in the back. One of the few end games we've got to see them together in the past couple games, and so let's make them. Most of it is what they'll be thinking as they jump on in. Rise jumping into boxes. He's the aggressive one right now. You expect to see User making those kind of plays, but Rise will never shy away. And again, running back into the zone, wrapping around where they can.
Yeah, truly showing that both of these players are a jack of all trades. They just play into their specialty, and it didn't work last game, but Kanata and Agers try again. They have the high ground for now, but can they hold on to it to the very end? Rise being forced back, trying to aid User. They're both getting backed up. Multiple shots coming in from different angles, but he makes the smart play to disengage, stay ahead of all this madness. You don't want to fall behind the curve, especially with the zone moving up the mountain.
You see them now focusing their attention to these players in the back. Big shots from Rise, trying to connect with more. But he has to wait a moment. Now jumping up, players falling down. Both these players getting split for a moment. Rise, you need to use the med miss, not a big pot, my friend. And make his way back forward. Users claiming space, and so when Rise does eventually get back into the zone, if he can get back into the zone, there will be a tarp waiting for him. And he needs to try and dodge these players, but he doesn't want to dodge anything. He wants to just fight, and fight is what he'll do. Convict gets taken out by Rise. And that might not be the last player to fall down at his hands. User finally falls. They weren't able to get to each other, and that really did cost him. But now it's up to Rise to continue these solo heroics.
Yeah, win or lose, Rise has dealt so much damage to the leaderboard, but Kanata and Agers, it's their chance to shine, their chance to rise up the leaderboards, a 2v2, and they have every advantage in the book, including all the heals. But Agers, he's playing it slow, he's out of materials, the Breacher coming out from Kanata, trying to cause destruction, cause some confusion, not let Bryce and Chubbs know exactly where they're coming from, as Kanata once again staying ahead of the zone. The heals, very, very minimal, if any at all, so it's now or never. You have to finish the fight. Chubbs gets dropped, so does Bryce. Kanata and Agers, toe-to-toe, they take the game.
I said I wanted to see the signature win from them today, and they gave it to me in game number 5. Jacob, these guys have been so consistent throughout the day. No other team has really been as consistent as these guys when it comes to making it to end games. But finally, securing the victory royale and doing it in emphatic fashion as well. Look at some of these shots Agers was hitting from above.
Yeah, it's huge for them to be able to take this game in the fashion that they did, because we saw Baka and Pars go down. We saw a lot of solo play. They started the game in 4th place at 172 points. This is a huge moment of opportunity for them to possibly get 2nd or even 1st, because you got to also take note, Rise and User also stayed to the very end of that game with the leaderboard this close. Who knows who's on top?
Yeah, look, I really want to know who's on top. So I'm going to send it to the analyst to quickly break it all down so we can see that leaderboard and see who's on top.
Thank you guys so much. Game number 5 is all done. And after game number 1, Agers and Kanata, they said 2nd place was not good enough. We would like to add a victory royale to the day and come back here in game number 5 to lock it down. And with 8 eliminations, they want that 1st place spot, Vivid. They are saying this is our day. We need to push it. We need to treat this like a grand finals coming up, because we have to make sure we're going to globals.
You said it, they want that 1st place spot, but 1st place spot will be the question. Who actually is going to find themselves up on top? But Kanata and Agers found themselves on top of the lobby this game, and finally we see them on height with enough materials to kind of survive throughout the rest of the lobby, apply enough pressure to deny access to anybody trying to contend it, because I feel like every single time we tune into them, in whatever endgame they were in, they were kind of looking towards high ground, or they had it at one point during the game.
Yeah, of course, last game they were a little bit more scuffed, so they actually, improved over that last game and improved their material management and, of course, those refreshes. But ultimately, up on the high ground, it was that Breacher shotgun from Kanata that really just kept them applying the pressure onto the players down below. Nobody had a chance at even looking up at the high ground because they were just getting constantly fired down. Kanata was doing a great job at that. He spoke about it as well, the Mammoth pistol at the beginning of the show. He likes to use that as well, and even using it in conjunction with the Breacher shotgun. It's a match made in heaven, and what a fantastic win for them.
That's right. Okay, I've gotten word. Standings are coming up, but really quickly, let's set the stage here for you. Remember, we're playing 6 games. Then at the end of the day, wherever a duel places, they will look to put points on the series point leaderboard. After 3 weeks of that, they take the top 50 and they go to grand finals. So right now, crucially, many duos have to try and find themselves in that top 10 if they want to hope to be in a good spot to make grand finals. With that said, let's take a look at the standings. Let's see how things are going. A single game left to go here, and NA, and it all could be the difference. Now, User and Rise, remember, if maybe you're just tuning in, you missed the first 5, welcome. Don't miss out on this last game. But these guys have held the lead. They missed qualification in Major number 1. They want to end the day in first place because that would be huge for the duo. Now, also, Agers and Kanata, they're creeping up, right, Vivid? After that Victory Royale, after those 8 eliminations, they're saying, look, first place, you're not that far away. You slip up, it's going to be ours.
Yeah, I mean, but let's talk about User and Rise, right? Because, you know, games 3 and 4 were a little bit of slip-ups, but finally they're back in form, right? Finishing game number 5 right there, 3rd place, 6 eliminations. But the thing for me is that it was a complete switch-up in terms of the playstyle. I mean, we've seen them consistently look for the high ground throughout the day when they've made it to the end game. But look at their position right here. They're completely on the low ground, and they just worked the boxes around them and looked for eliminations throughout the entirety of this end game, and they still had so many heals and so many mats to work with.
Yeah, they did. And this is the result of when they're both alive in the end game. In the last couple of games, we've seen one of them go down and one of them have to clutch up in the latter stages of the game. But although they did get a little bit split here, they got a little bit sort of separated from each other, but Rise managed to clutch up with some crazy eliminations. It's all about staying together. It's all about staying alive in this end game. And when they are together at the end game, these are the results.
Man, I'm stressed. I'm already stressing out, okay? Classic Zeke, let's just stress out in game number 6. Why not? Let's go back to the standings. Let's call out a few more things here. More duos to look at, of course. Break down what they pulled off here in game number 5. Take a look. Acorn and Cold. Hey, jumping up 2 places. Okay, I'm down for that, right? Now, remember, these guys, they're already through. They have their global spot. They're fine. But now they want to turn attention to everyone else and just say, hey, listen, we can play spoiler on you. We can make sure we gatekeep you a little bit. Now, how, if this is globals, Vivid, do you think that right now they are in proper form to compete with all of the regions that will be on at LAN?
Acorn or Cold, I mean, yeah, I feel like this game, throughout some of these games right now, they're probably just having a little bit of fun, right? They're just kind of running around. So the performance probably isn't the best or what, you know, they can definitely do in each and every single one of these games. But I think we sold our full form in game number 2 there, where they did get that victory around. They had 12 eliminations.
Yeah, we've seen them adapt a lot today as well. Those mid-game rotations, we've seen them be their demise earlier on. So they've actually adapted, they've actually learned from how the meta has shifted and how things have played out, especially with those Mammoth pistols. They've already had a few issues with those at the beginning. So now they're actually finding out how to make it to the end game successfully together as a duo. And it's just incredible.
And I love that too. Jacob kind of called that out at the beginning of the game, right? Some duos, they're still trying to adjust to the Mammoth, right? They're kind of used to playing this old play style, but you have to be cautious. Now, one more time, those standings, we've seen that top 10. I think we kind of need to kind of set the stage because remember, we still have 11 through 20 to talk about as well. Only a couple more minutes here before we jump back into all of the action. I'm hyped. Vivid, are you excited? Because I'm stressing. Stress levels are through the roof, bro.
You know, I feel like when we're looking at the leaderboard, the top 5 teams, right, they've all pretty much made it into grand finals at this point because they had, you know, solid finishes in week number 1 and now week number 2 as we go into game number 6. But yeah, a lot of those teams got to step it up. We talked about, you know, teams earlier on where they didn't play together in week number 1. So they have 0 series points for that week.
I mean, something that I noticed about the leaderboard as well, it was Rise and User. They have 15 of those objective points. That's the difference for them at the moment. So they're actually able to get that vault more often than not. And for them, it's working.
Well, this is it. One final game, objectives, victory royales, eliminations. No one can make a mistake. Let's do it. This is the final game of week number 2 in NA.
It is time, Levin. It is the final countdown, the last go around from teams, and what was once a close leaderboard has spread out just a little bit more.
Yeah, look, we're looking at all these teams and we're going, you know what, you're the usual suspects. You're the ones we expect to be doing well. But it's been interesting to see how throughout the day, different teams have sort of popped up at different times with their breakout performances, and others have stayed consistent throughout the day. But ultimately, it all comes down to this last game now, as it is so close up there.
Yeah, and without Surge Week, this major, it's those top 50 teams, and that's why you're seeing the fight. Even at the lower half of the leaderboard, every placement means so much if you want to make that grand finals. And who will get that auto qualification in this week? We'll find out as Game 6 begins.
The final chance to lock in your series points before we head into the last week of qualifiers. There are some teams within NA right now who know their chances of an FNCS final this major are done. There are a lot of teams in this lobby who know that they will be playing in the grand finals as long as this last game isn't completely shambolic. And for Ryzen user, they finally have warded off the console team that has been contesting them all day long. And so it won't be 6-0 off spawn. It will just be 5, as that sick fight won't even happen. But I guess you can attribute this win to them, right? They've pushed them out of the way, Jacob. And so maybe we'll just say it's been 6-0 off spawn just for that reason.
That's kind of what I said was to happen. It's literally up to them if they get shut out or not. And I like the switch up in the last game and talked about the importance of the series points, even all the way down that leaderboard. So Peterbot quickly gets back up. Quanti losing his teammate, so his game just got exponentially harder. It doesn't look like he's ready to give up the chase just yet. Has a good amount of loot, has a good amount of materials as well. He's ready to fight for it all, especially in these final moments. And this is a challenge, a tough one that he's willing to take. Larson and Peterbot trying to stabilize themselves here in this position. We see them just holding on to their pieces. Peterbot popping a couple minis to get the shield back up, and that's not going to stop Quanti from dropping down low. Changing targets, that might have been a mistake, but both of them are weak. Larson peeks back through. He gets the knock onto one. Can he get the siphon? That is so important with Peterbot getting back down little by little. He gets it to come through, and Quanti with the clutch!
That is what you want to see from Quanti. Making his former duo pay. Spitting right in his face, yeah. You want to drop me? Here's a taste. That drum shotgun, oh my goodness. You don't get to see it getting used often. But when it is used, well, it can be devastating. He should have won this. Ring around the rosies dancing around those builds. And Quanti makes it happen.
That siphon, that split-second hesitation from Peterbot to kind of rush in before the siphon was picked up, truly was the difference. But the Lonely Labs battle continues. Blake feeling the hurt, feeling the pain of the Mammoth. It's going to allow for 20 to run wild. Macwood by himself. Luckily for him, it's just a lever. It's not going to be able to one-shot him just yet, but it is a 2v1. The pressure from all angles. Macwood gets dropped first. Blakewood, he's trying to return. He's trying to lend that helping hand, but is it too little, too late? Gotta imagine all the heals. 20 full health. Pledge getting there. He's ready to challenge. Blake's trying to battle with the high ground, but it's just not enough. The trades that is going through is just whittling Blake down little by little by little, making this near impossible for him to try to survive. But the medkit attempt, he needs 6 seconds. 20 and Pledge know it. They don't want to give him any time to work with. The side shot goes through, but Blake goes down.
Brilliantly done from 20 and Pledge. And they will wrap up the day as the victors of Lonely Labs here in this game. But the fighting don't stop, Jacob. All across the map, we've seen a bunch of fights all throughout the day happen relatively quickly, and it's Poyo and Sphinx now up against Bucky and Okis. And for Poyo and Sphinx especially, with just how high they are positioned in the leaderboard, this fight is make or break. They cannot afford to slip up here.
Yeah, even though from last game to this, it's spread up just a little bit, but they're down 20 points from second place, 31 from third place. It's definitely achievable in this game, and this could be the battle that starts it all. But the opponents they're going against, Bucky and Okis, some heavy hitters in this lobby. They know how to fight with the best of them, so it's not a battle you do want to take lightly. Poyo and Sphinx just pausing, trying to formulate some sort of strategy. What's the play going to be for them? And you see in your mini-map, Okis and Bucky, they just completely disengaged. They don't want any more of it. They're not getting the shots that they want. They're out of here. Ooh. Ready for that peek. It's like he warmed him up for it. Peppered him, begging him to shoot back, and as soon as he does, just a massive haymaker of a shot. And those are the risky scenarios you end up in when going up against the Mammoth.
How many times are we going to talk about the Mammoth today?
As long as they keep letting us.
As long as it keeps happening. Through the 5 games, there have been 79 pistol eliminations in NA compared to 71 in EU.
Okay. That's a little scary how not only are they opting to drop the AR overall, but the huge increase in overall eliminations, and you're going to see that progressively kind of increase.
I bet you if you made like a graph of just pistol eliminations throughout the year in all FNCSs, you would just have a massive spike this week compared to the rest of the year. Because we truly haven't seen anything like this in a long, long time. M-Pen going to work at Frenzy Fields, and even when Bilo was taken out, still made things happen and continuing. Even after the fact there, Curly didn't see it coming and so punished, and so now M-Pen will pick up the reboot, and Bilo will be able to play the game once more.
M-Pen and Bilo, they need to get as many points as possible. They need to follow it up with a week 3 performance as well, and that's just kind of the dangers that the format gives out to some of these players. There's no chance for mistakes, no safety net in Surge Week. You don't get top 50. It's as simple as you don't make grand finals. But over to Rise and User, who've taken first place back after that game 5, lasting long into the end game overall, even though they didn't end up victorious. It's all about consistency over 6 games. You can see them chopping down the tree. We talked about their surge plan and how they get it very, very early on. They don't rotate far off of their drop splat to get everything that they need for their game.
User and Rise are the only week 1 winners to win a game in week 2 finals across all regions. Last week we saw some one-hit wonders apparently, but these guys are the real deal. They are mega stars. Hit after hit it seems, and might just win another week back to back. That would be something, wouldn't it? Acorn and Cole though having some struggles.
If they can achieve that, that'll be huge. Booga and Threads continuously rotating from the southern portion of the map. Now find some struggles here at Mega City where so many teams begin to battle it out. And this is where he's looking around every single corner. You see how dangerous it is. Shots coming from all directions. Finally reunites with Threats yet again. Slap Juice is coming out. Even gets a refresh on those slashes to try to keep himself going. Not a ton of HP and shields until now. And this is where they're going to try to find their footing in this fight yet again.
Pars and Baka, another one of those teams vying for the first place sweepstakes. Almost some nice piece control there from Pars if he was able to box him in. But it doesn't matter because the LM will still come anyway. Bryce will fall.
That Mammoth upgrade. That's scary. Grabs him on his ankles, make sure he doesn't escape the box. Now gets a huge upgrade. Pars feeling comfortable now that he has his teammate back. But second place here. Agers and Kanata, they've been doing consistent work throughout the day to get to this point. 2 different games they battled for high ground. Only one of them they were able to pick up the VR, but it shows their consistency to go for that high ground. Battle offers, they're trying to push that team back. They built themselves a long tunnel. OMG Me Too might have got into the wrong box. There's where Kanata's building even more real estate. And this is where it's going to get dangerous for OMG Me Too and Pal. Paper's on the other side. A lot of players in close proximity with the potential third party as Kanata gets all that loot he was looking for in the first place. two teams.
Nice shotgun upgrade as well.
Even leaves back a good shot in there for a moment. So if anybody goes, because you see a lot of players go into these boxes where they know caches were kind of boxed up on and they try to scavenge together. If anybody goes into that box, they're going to find at least some treasures that were left behind. And you can tell by Kanata and Age's rotation trying to go towards the south. The zone might be trying to center up, which is kind of good for a lot of the teams that are on the outskirts. As Bolt and Thork, they're getting a weapon cache of their own. Everybody at this stage in the game, as third zone does appear, that's when the caches spawn, and that's where teams like to use different tactics, from the mud to augment combinations to the rifts, to try to get there as quick as possible, box up, and just try to push these teams far out and not let them contest it.
Reboot comes through.
It's impressive the amount of times we've actually seen either Cold or Acorn get rebooted in these games and still end up with a top placement.
I was wondering where you're going with that one.
As well. You know, it's just one of those things to where typically if you're forced to get rebooted, history says it's not on your side. You know, and I'm not going up against history. And for Acorn and Cold, you know, it's impressive. They're kind of like matching in a way, even though they're not contested off the drop, the nature of Malabuka and Thomas and what they're doing with the adversity they're facing through their matches.
I would still be concerned at the amount of times they have it to be rebooted. But that's just because I'm far more pessimistic than you, Jacob.
I'm an optimist. Glass half full, because then you can drink more water. Mission. Osit. This is one of those patient plays. They know he's here by himself. High ground. Miss Mammoth on the first one, but the second one still drains the shields just like that. And this is where the Nightmare comes rolling in. Multiple angles being taken. He tries to drop a layer, but they're not letting him escape that easy. They've dealt too much damage too early on to let 2 points escape him just like that, but he turns, burns. A huge shot being fired onto a Minish, but the multiple angles and the numbers game is just simply too much.
Minish doing the business. Fret's going down in the field. Oh dear, it's not been too great for Luga and Fret so far. User running off right now. Where's Rise? Is the question. Okay, I see him. To the left. There's a team in between them.
Left.
Okay.
My team is still left, I'm just saying.
Are we at that point in the night?
I'll put it on pause just a little bit. I'll put it on pause. User and Rise, perfect rotation. Everybody knows where the mud is at, so you can kind of see them make it a part of every single one of their rotations, rightfully so. Without mobility, it's almost a must. Kanata and Agers once again show the dangers of the Mammoth. The combination, 100. Oh, 3 straight shots onto Okus and Bucky, and they're going for Rift Island, business as usual.
Yeah, that's something, isn't it?
240 damage. And then you have Agers with the MK just making sure nobody survives. And just judging by the minimap, you can see Okus and Bucky, the only ones challenging that high ground, so it's not going to take them long to get back into the game. As we continue to look around, a lot of our teams that are positioned at the top leaderboard, Baka and Pars, doing a good job, but up until this point, Hoyo and Sphinx, they're the contenders in our top 3. Taco, how have they been faring as they try to rise up first?
Well, right now, the pressure is on, Jacob, because as far as our second and third place teams are concerned, Foyo, Sphinx, they've got a lot in terms of materials. Their builds are looking fully maxed out just about. And right now, the priority focus just seems to be on ensuring that they have their materials, their loot, their resources intact. And the same could honestly be said for Kanata and Aegis as well. We just saw Kanata piecing up some of the competition. It's almost seeming a little bit personal at this point with Kanata and that Mammoth pistol up against Bucky and Okus and the likes of other members in the lobby. But so far, so good. Whether or not these teams can close it out with a strong finish is the real question, because first place is still up for grabs.
Strong finish is surely needed, especially since it wasn't as close. The 1-2 point differential that we had going into that 5th game. Now it's 11. Now it's 30. Even more so as we go down that leaderboard. So the more chance to kind of get those series points are going right out the window as long as our team survives. Reed's going to take down Thoric in the feed. Haven't seen too much of him, but better late than never, trying to pick up the points and the pace as well as Rise is separated. You see Pledge and 20 inching in on his position, but it's not going to back him down. The roles have switched. Rise is turning into the fragger of the group and just taking names left and right. Now Pledge is left by himself, and with those mythic flapjacks, no time's going to be wasted getting into the box.
Yeah, I've said it many times, man. That mythic flapjack, like when you are forcing your way into box with that, it is just devastating, man. Absolutely devastating. Reet and Ritual in a bit of a pickle here. But one they're making good work of. Ritual does fall, but Reet was there to respond to bolts.
Just trying to see exactly where they're positioned at on the leaderboard in terms of Reet and Ritual. About 30th place, so there's still room for them to kind of move up the leaderboards. Gather those series points. That's what everybody here is fighting for. Some more than others in terms of total quantity. Some players here on the day are fighting for that qualification here in week 2 due to the amount of series points they've been able to get in week number 1, but Cold in the feed is going to get dropped. One of those possible teams trying to fight for it if they can finish here at the top of the leaderboard. Is Acorn being stuck by himself. They've already rebooted each other once in this game so far. So I can finally see what you're saying about the worries of that reboot. The consistency of it happening. But at least both of these players are extremely skilled. They can get out of every tough scenario at a moment's notice. Acorn trying to go on the offensive as a solo. Not scared to back down from any fight. Taking control of a lot of the real estate towards the low ground. That way he can move in and out of these covers effortlessly, even with a flapjack trying to cause the destruction. Acorn takes a huge tag. Back-to-back shots. They finally go down, and that means the top of the leaderboard is open for the taking.
That's tough.
Yeah.
That's a tough way to see a team that's so impressive go out, but like Vivid said, I feel like they know they are qualified for the grand finals after the way they've performed in the past 2 weeks. I think for them, it's more about having fun and just playing loose in the last couple games, and that'll at least allow them to get an early night. Log off a bit earlier, hit the hay.
Get a little early dinner. At least they can kind of relax, watch it all unfold, maybe even take notes about what some of these other teams are doing. Duke looks like he's going to try to survive as a solo. Very little opportunity, even if he has the reboot card, to get Edgy back into the game. So interesting to see how they finish this one off. As we go back to look at some of the teams that are positioned at the top leaderboard, have a chance to us all proud. That's why I keep mentioning it. A lot of people didn't give him a ton of credit going to this. A lot of people didn't think the region could compete at the highest level, but I think there's a bunch of names that are consistently proving people wrong, and this is one of those teams. Well, that is one way to get an elimination. The kinetic ore into a team. That's Quanti goes down. Chimp right after. It actually gets stolen away. It looked like Baka and Pars were going to get one, but Defiable with well-placed shots steals away those points. Unfortunately, all the loot is still going to go over to Baka and Pars and help their game as we're one team away from those placement points beginning to set in.
One team away, that's all it takes. And from there on out, every single thing you do is so crucial to allowing you to secure more and more of those placement points, right? Every one of these teams trying to outlast each other, and we know it's difficult. If you've watched these past 5 games, 6 games, you know just how tough it is to make it through to this stage of the game and even further than that. Frets and Booga had a bit of a hiccup along the way to get to this point, but nevertheless, still looking very strong right now, way above on Surge, a ridiculous amount above on Surge, and plenty of loot to boot. Canada, some nice shots being hit back to back. Go on, give us a third, give us a third, one more. Give us the hat trick.
So he's not only looking at players who are shooting, he's looking in the directions in which they're shooting at, and that's how he's able to find these cheeky shots. One of the furthest teams to zone already, and they waste no time trying to get there. The only other team making this quick rotation on the other side is going to be Okus and Bucky. And they're already positioning themselves on the side of that mountain. They're the gatekeepers for the rest of the lobby. With so many players rotating this direction, they have so much flexibility, options, and who they want to target. It makes it where there might be a chance for somebody to sneak on by if the zone opens up.
Sinks and Pollo, no problems whatsoever. Never in doubt when it comes to getting to end games.
Trying to make this quick rotation. It's 500 above the damage threshold, so Storm Surge is not in a worry. Might be in the back of their mind, though, if the lobby does dwindle down quicker than they would expect. And if you see the rotation, almost looks like a clear rotation, especially with the lobby a little distracted. Even with Agers going down, he gets taken down by Defiable. Kanata is weak, so he's going to have to stabilize himself. No peeking for you as Pollo and Sphinx find themselves a little crevice on the edge of zone with some height. I like the position in which they're at, but now Kanata by himself. We talked about Agers just going down in the feed. If he wants to take first, he definitely has a mountain to climb, especially with Rise and User still at the top of the leaderboard.
Where will that first move in zone pool is the question. And how will Kanada respond all the way to the south threats? He's lost Boogas. I was talking about how stacked they were in terms of their loot and everything they had. And that's quickly all dwindled away. No materials really left and no teammate left for threats. Kanada lining up another shot, potentially will pass peak out. No. Oh dear, the timing.
Tagged up high ground. That's a huge amount of damage at a position he doesn't want to be in, but almost a nice shot. 150 straight to the dome of Bucky. That's not going to stop him. They're able to get the Siphon right back up with now all the mats, but the first semblance of the high ground goes on over to Baka and Pars. They're a team that has a chance to win the entirety of Week 2 if they're able to hold on. But Ninth Zone, we've seen it happen already in so many games today. It get taken away because Ninth Zone might be a little too early.
Baka and Pars trying to close this game out in a way that they definitely know how to. We've seen them do it. User and Rise. We've not seen them soar in the skies of high ground. But to be fair, if you know Rise, he has always preferred to play down low. And so now they'll start to look up at some of those teams. Anyone that really looks weak, anyone that looks vulnerable, as they continue moving through these zones.
Yeah, they're trying to remain on the front side of the zone. They're trying to remain ahead of everybody else. Baka and Pars, they're going to have to go down and connect. That one's going to be solidified rather easy. Backside of the zone, though, Bucky's feeling the pressure. He actually gets knocked. Okus is now stuck by himself. You see Sphinx dealing out a lot of that damage over on the other side. That's Rise. That's Users in their line of sight. And they're continuously dropping down low. They're trying to clean up the Siphon, but Users gets dropped. Users goes down. Now it's all up to Rise. It doesn't look like he can get the revive. So now it's a solo trying to hold on to his position on the leaderboard.
User definitely didn't expect to go down. I didn't expect him to go down there. It felt like it was going to be an easy in. And that leaves a world of trouble for Rise to try and carry the team on his back. Sphinx and Pollo, though, down below, they're continuing the work Rise and User were doing. Taking people out on the low ground.
There's only a few points left before first place is overtaken. Kanata and Agers are down already. Sphinx and Pollo, they want to taste that victory as well. It's not enough that they have their global championship spot. They want to make sure that they're prepared to take it all at the end of the day. Rise still struggling as a solo. Very little builds left, but he's trying to break through and recycle as much as he can. Even on the other side, the other team in that top three, Baka and Pars, once again reinforce their high ground, making sure it's going to take a lot and a lot of effort if they're going to get chopped down.
All these hills and old builds to move through has meant they haven't really been able to get involved in the midst of the action and all the fighting that's been going down below. But when the time does come to drop, they will be ready, and they will be much stronger than anybody else left in this lobby. Poyo trying his best not to get back into the zone. And a couple bandages in inventory. I don't think he'll use them, though. The slurp will get him back up past 75 HP in no time. But no materials left means he is going to have to force his way into this duo. And unfortunately, they might just be waiting for him. You can see them there on the other side of this wall. As soon as he breaks it, it could be his demise. He falls back to try change up the angle a bit. But they are not going to take the bait. Poyo will fall. And so now the final 2v2 between Paper Muds and Baka and Pars.
This is a chance for Baka and Pars to try to solidify this one with 2 VRs on the day and a chance at first. Paper gets dropped. Baka's ready to finish the game, but his HP is low. He needs the siphon. Slap Splash is coming out as well. Doing a good job staying alive and going around the block to take down Muzz as well. They get their second victory on the day.
Calm and collected. Did not miss a beat. The siphon at the end there was so crucial. You saw him instinctively go for the body. And that siphon kept him in the game long enough to be able to hit that final shot. Otherwise, it may have been wraps. But Baka and Pars pick up another one.
Right there was big. Baka Spartan down. Paper with the mythic tactical pistol. That one looked easy. And there goes that siphon you were talking about. Because the slap splashes, in theory, while you're in zone, only really heal 5 HP. If he didn't get that siphon, he was going to go down. And that would have been a tough 1v1 for Pars to try to survive. But nonetheless, 2 VRs on the day for the team that's formerly from NA West, really rising up the ranks.
Impressive day from that team for sure. Again, continuing to solidify themselves as one of the top teams now in NA Central. Right now that everything is combined. Look, it's been a great day of action from me and you, Jacob. I've enjoyed every single moment of it. Let's send it back to Zeke and the boys to wrap up the day.
Thank you guys so much. 2 victory royales from Baka and Pars, 9 eliminations to boot. Ooh. You can bet those standings will be shaken up, and we'll get to that in just a moment because, man, we just have to give a big congratulations to Baka and Pars. I kind of touched on this like a little bit. You know, there's duos that maybe start the day a little slow, but the moment they kick it into gear, they find that groove, that rhythm. They can really put in effort. They can find themselves climbing those standings, and it looks like for Baka and Pars, they did just that.
I mean, finding the high ground here, it's just going to be a classic way to end the day for this team. And their match history is kind of insane. I mean, they got a 42nd place and a 32nd place in games 2 and 5. But when they made it into the end game, they did not place outside of top 5. So if they could, you know, fix up those little mistakes they made in those 2 games, oh my gosh, this is a team to watch.
Yeah, this is a very dangerous duo. The way they're taking high ground, the way they're actually using those mobility or the builds to take their way into that end game and make sure that they close out the game with success, that shows experience, that shows skill, that shows talent. This is a team that I'm very excited to see going forward into these grand finals. Of course, hopefully for them, they should have made it in, but I'm excited to see them perform.
Well, let's see about the here and the now. Let's take a look at those standings. Let's see how things were going. Now, we know Baka and Pars were in 4th place going into that game. They will climb up a single spot. However, User rise. Now, in case you know, User is Iamzo, but for the purpose of this, we'll call him User for now. They have held down that #1 spot, only getting dethroned, I believe, 1 time, Vivid. But man, to end the day, remember, this is a duo that missed qualifying for Globals in a major #1. So they need to make it to grand finals, and they still need to punch that ticket to Globals.
You know, we can talk about today as much as we really want because the performance was outstanding. And, you know, we could see that on the leaderboard. They got 1st place. But let's talk about the overall. I mean, you win week 1 and week 2 of these weekly finals. And then, you know, coming in, we talked about how strong we thought this duo was going to do. But then there were some question marks, right? Oh, they're going to be contested all spawn. How's that going to fare? 5-0, Mini?
I mean, 6-0. I'm going to give him 6-0. Okay. Why not? You know, enjoy it. because that has just answered all of our questions. As you said, we had a few questions about can they actually survive? Can they actually manage when there's a team contesting them? And I mean, so far, that's not a bad showing, is it? Coming first place in both weeks, while contested and uncontested. Today, I think we just saw their strategy perfectly played out. We broke it down at the beginning of the show. They've done it game after game. Of course, there was a couple of games where they had a little bit of an unfavorable situation. One of them was left as a solo in the end game, so they need to fix those. They need to fix those situations, those problems, but I have no doubts this is a duo that we'll be seeing in the Global Championships because the way they're playing, they'll...
I guess my question is, Castle Split, is it theirs? Is that it? Is it theirs? Is no one else wanting to compete? Because as these performances have shown, the answer should probably be no, but we'll have to see if another duo wants to step up and say, listen, we're not going to let you have that for free. We kind of come back to the standings here. Pollo and Sphinx, they actually already are through to Globals, but they're still looking to make it to Grand Finals. They still want to push the envelope and really treat it like they are already there, right? If they can continue to sharpen themselves when they have to go up against the other 5 regions at Globals, they want to be ready, Vivid.
Yeah, and I mean, I talked about the consistency of Baka and Pars when they actually made it into the end game, and you know, Polo and Sphinx had an incredible average placement of just 9 throughout the day, which was actually only beaten out by Yamza and Rice. So they were very, very consistently making it into the later parts of the game, and that's really good to see in these weekly finals.
I mean, when they're making it into top 10, they're getting a third, a first, and a second. So, I mean, they've just completed it in the end game, which is great to see. We just need to see them make those end games a little bit more consistently. Of course, the 3 games that they had that weren't quite as favorable, that weren't inside of that top 10, they just struggled to get those crucial refreshes that they couldn't, of course, use going into that top 10. So, a few little mistakes, a few little things to tweak, and this is definitely a duo that I'm excited to see.
I love it. And of course, I wanted to highlight our duo in 4th place there. It is Kanata and Agers. We began the day with an interview with Kanata. And of course, Kanata, in case you know, he's a pretty confident guy, but he has the skill to back that confidence. Look at these disgusting headshots with a mammoth pistol. He said, and I quote, "If I'm pretty good with it. So if I get it, I'm sure I'm going to land some big hits." And sure enough, we saw it time and time again today.
Yeah, I mean, we highlighted Thomas over on EU, and I feel like Kanata is going to be the highlight of the day when it comes to the Mammoth pistol because, I mean, these shots, you could just see it in the Storm Surge damage alone. I mean, 1,200 above with only 1 elimination. It's all Kanata.
But he's only pretty good, by his own words. He's only, I mean, bro, if that's pretty good, I don't know what amazing is because he is showing his aim is top notch right now and they're making it to those end games well. I'm excited to see if they can continue that, of course, as well because they had a few hiccups today going into the end game, but this is a duo that are coming back to their prime and I'm excited to see it.
What a fantastic day of showing here in NA. But it is that time. We have an interview lined up for all of you at home. That's right. We're going to get to talk to the man of the hour. It is none other than User, a.k.a. Iamzo. Now, Iamzo, I feel like we should just hang out at this point. I feel like we talk so much. Like, we're just friends now.
Yeah, just winning so much.
I guess that's all you know how to do, huh? It's just win them all. Well, congratulations. I don't know for how many times this is racked up at this point. Does this feel any different? Are you just like, another day at the office? Or are you like, nah, you know, this feels good to get this win?
It definitely feels good to get this win because we were actually conned all 6 games and we 6-0'd them. So it definitely feels good to win all conned.
Yeah, that was a big switch up for you guys this week, of course, being conned. But speaking about the 6 games themselves, I saw you guys going for high ground focus in games 1 and 2, but then towards the later half, it seemed like you guys liked the low ground. Was that something you guys decided to do on the fly, or was that like a planned thing?
We had like a plan going into each game, but the first 2 games we were able to play high, and then the last games, like we obviously went lower layers.
That's great to hear. Now, of course, game 3 and 4, you guys didn't quite have the best games. What happened? Talk me through, of course. I think it was one of you guys left as a solo in both of those games. What went wrong? What are you going to try and fix for next week?
To be honest, those 2 like dud games, that was a small mistake that shouldn't have happened, to be honest. But yeah, we know our mistake.
I see. So, okay, let's talk about Global Championships. You guys had just missed out by a single placement. And now you can just tell that fire is lit. You guys are ready to push yourselves to the very limits. Right now, if you were to just go to Globals, let's say Globals was tomorrow, do you feel like you guys are ready to take on these other regions on a LAN setting? Or is there maybe just a couple things you guys feel like you want to shore up before you go that far?
Globals tomorrow, I definitely think we could win. Yeah.
He's like, yeah, Yamzo is a man of few words. Hey, listen, I appreciate the confidence, and you again, you're just one of the best. That's why that's why you have these conversations so often. Yamzo, if there's fans out there who are seeing this for the first time, they're like, this guy is cracked. Where can they find you?
My Twitter is just Yamzo1. Yeah, that's where you could find me.
Fantastic. Well, hey, man, huge congratulations again. I don't know how many more this makes. I'm sure we'll talk again in the near future. And, of course, we look forward to seeing you next week for week number 3.
Thank you.
Yamzo, again, he's a man of few words, but just check the skill, check the math, check the data, and see who's in that number 1 spot. Yamzo and Rise are a fearsome duo indeed. Man, guys, I'm just excited, I think, for week number 3. My question becomes, can they keep this momentum going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they really only got better this week. You know, the biggest hurdle from week 1 to week 2 is the fact that they were contested this week, and that was literally no problem. So I don't see why they couldn't take home week 3.
I'm a little bit nervous as to whether other teams that did contest them or are planning on contesting them maybe might try and find a way around their drop spot strategy. So maybe we'll see a few changes going into next week. It's something definitely to keep your eye on.
Absolutely. Well, that is pretty much it for us this week. I know we want to watch more Fortnite, talk more Fortnite, see crazy headshots, but that is it for the weekend. When are we back? It is next weekend, Major 3, week 3. There we go. Couple key things here, okay? So obviously next weekend we'll be back with EU and NA. Grand Finals, though, August 12th and 13th. Make sure you don't miss out on that. That is going to be an initial spot, a couple spots there going to Global Championships. If duos can place high, they can claim those spots. They're good to go. Next stop is Globals. However, that next key date, August 20th, this is the last chance major, and just as the name suggests, this will be the final opportunity to earn spots to the Global Championships. We'll discuss more of that when the time comes, but for right now, we pretty much have to say goodbye. And speaking of Globals, don't forget, tickets are still available, so if you want to go, check this out. This is the Global Championship.
The best players in the world all battling it out.
Insane matches already today.
These are the moments that make these players championship material.
One chance to make it happen, and they take it by force.
It is going to be absolutely insane. Global Championships not that far away. We hope to see you guys there because it is going to be absolutely insane. You can tell I've said that a lot. I have. Gentlemen, before we wrap up the day, is there any closing thoughts from you two?
NA was really, really fun. I mean, the weekend overall was really, really fun. We saw some crazy highlights. I feel like NA adapted to the hype meta. I saw a lot more takes. And, you know, overall, thanks to everybody hanging out with us. And shout out to Minnie for pushing through that voice of yours.
Yeah, we just about got through. Just about. But, of course, I was really impressed with a lot of these teams today. Some of our top-tier teams. I mean, some of the plays have been crazy. The Mammoth plays have been unbelievable as well. A lot of the times, I was left speechless. Literally.
Well, he did it. Fortnite fam, thank you guys so much. This is not possible without all of you, so we appreciate y'all hanging out, watching these games, getting hype with us. We truly appreciate it. Of course, big shout outs to our casters, 11-2K, Jacob PR, our mid-game analyst, the best Taco, these guys, Vivid and Mini Miner. And don't forget, we are back next week with more action from the FNCS. Don't forget, Legends Landing, Terminator, all up in the Fortnite games. So make sure you check all of those out. Until next time, we hope you have a fantastic week. We love you. Keep yourself safe. And we'll see you on that battle bus.